would like to welcome all of you to this meeting of the Los Angeles Water and Power Commission. Before we get to the agenda, I would like to extend a special welcome to our 4 newly appointed commissioners, Jill Banks-Barad, Representative Mel Levine, William Thunderberg, and Michael Fleming, who I had the pleasure of serving with previously on the Los Angeles Convention Center Commission. Welcome. It is very exciting to have you serve on this board. I'm sure each of you has strong feelings as you take your seat here for the first time. I certainly remember very well my first meeting as a new member of the Board of Water and Power Commissioners. What stays with me most is the great responsibility I felt that I had been given such a wonderful opportunity to do truly important work for our city. The Department of Water and Power is building LA's water and power future today, and that provides the sort of opportunity that keeps me engaged today as I was in my first meeting as a commissioner more than 3 years ago. I also remember quite clearly a feeling of unease I had that day, knowing that this commission would no doubt experience challenges and have to overcome obstacles as we work to build a stronger DWP, a more transparent DWP. Fortunately, our former interim general manager, Austin Buettner, and our current general manager, Ron Nichols, and his staff share this vision of a new DWP. With their support, our previous commission was able to start creating a new and better department. To recap in short, we made great strides in increasing DWP's reliance on renewable energy, keeping the department on schedule to meet state mandate of having 33% of our power from renewable sources by 2020, while working to moderate potential rate impacts of the transition to renewables. We help lead the DWP towards greater water reliability and greater use of recycled water. Under our leadership, Los Angeles attained the lowest per capita water use of any large city in the nation, an accomplishment the Sierra Club recognized when it ranked Los Angeles County with Orange County as tied for first place on their National Water Conservation Scorecard. And we made great progress in creating a more transparent department, a DWP that fosters greater public engagement and listens more carefully to what the public has to say. We Angelinos have been very well served by DWP's outgoing commissioners who started the process of creating a way of doing things better here. Former Board President Thomas Sales, Vice President Eric Hollerman, and board members Richard Moss and Jonathan Parfrey deserve our thanks for their dedication, hard work, and a sincere acknowledgement for their efforts. They really, really made strides here. My fellow commissioners, when Mayor Garcetti introduced this new commission to our city, he said our task is to help him shake up the status quo at the department. I'm proud of what we accomplished in recent years, but believe me, there's still left much work for us to improve, and the work is starting today. So I'm very excited to have you on board. Each of you comes here, I'm sure, with your own priorities, and I look forward to working with you on all of them. As for my priorities, I'm eager to continue digging into DWP's procurement practices and set new policies that govern how we purchase goods and services. Greater transparency and tighter policies in this area will protect not only our ratepayers, but also the integrity of this organization. I also will be seeking your support in my ongoing efforts to have the DWP embrace new technologies and new ways of doing things that are good for our ratepayers. For example, new technology plastic pipe compounds are safe, less expensive, and require less labor than old technology pipes that we're using now. Water agencies throughout the country and internationally have embraced this new technology with good results. So when appropriate, why should DWP not follow the same course? Finally, and most importantly, I look forward to working with you to continue DWP's move towards more renewables, more conservation, and more recycled water, because as a commissioner, I know it's the right direction for our department, and as a mother, I know it's the right thing to do for our children and future generations. At this point, I welcome the invitation for you to introduce yourselves to one another and to the ratepayers. Would you like to start, Commissioner Levine?
Thank you very much, Commissioner Noonan, and thank you thank you for the excellent service that you've already provided to the DWP through your past service on the Commission. Briefly, it's a real honor to have been appointed by the Mayor to this Commission. This is the premier municipal utility in America, with a superb workforce, with an excellent management staff, and I was particularly flattered and pleased to be appointed along with such able other commissioners. This is a wonderful group, and I'm delighted to have been included in it. A couple of thoughts. This is a promising start for a new board as we begin. Coincidentally, on the 100th anniversary of the Los Angeles Aqueduct, something that I'm sure we'll be spending a lot of time talking about and celebrating. And also just as a new labor management agreement is ratified, one which will save ratepayers substantial amounts of money and around which labor and management were able to come together in the last several weeks. We, as Commissioner Noonan indicated, we will face a number of challenges, and we will also have a number of opportunities to meet these challenges. As she also indicated, our mayor has made it very clear that he's committed to DWP reform, doing all that he can to protect the ratepayers who rely on DWP, and I'm confident that we will all take that mandate extremely seriously. So as I join with the other new commissioners and the senior commissioner, I'm looking forward to working to ensure the highest quality of water conservation, of recycled water, and the highest quality of power services, and to achieve our power as much as we possibly can through renewables and conservation to the maximum extent possible, and with the greatest sensitivity to our ratepayers. I must admit that I didn't expect to wake up 10 or 11 days ago to a story on the front page of the Los Angeles Times talking about our inability to track $40 million, and that's something that we will get into later in this session, and subsequently the issue of transparency is one that obviously raises. So we'll be looking into a number of serious issues later this morning, asking for a thorough and prompt accounting on the $40 million. But for now, it's just a pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to working closely with all of you and looking forward to getting to work. Thank you.
I'd like to echo Commissioner Levine's, Congressman Levine's remarks, and thank you, Commissioner Noonan. My name is William Funderburk, and I've been a resident of Los Angeles for almost a quarter century, and been heavily involved in environmental issues for that past time. And I am looking forward to really doing the right thing for the ratepayers. I've been impressed in just the past 2 weeks how professional this agency is, how top flight the management is in terms of its technical expertise, and how great a job that they do. But that doesn't mean that there's not room for improvement and just in accounting for and making sure that the ratepayers' money is looked after and spent properly. So with that, I'll turn it over to the next commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner Noonan, and thank you to the management and staff, and most important, thank you to the public for trusting us to do the right thing.
Good afternoon. It's a true honor to be here, and especially with 4 other terrific civic leaders, Mel and Jill and Bill and, of course, Christina. Elections have consequences, and I believe what Mayor Garcetti saw in us as a group are a fresh set of eyes and ears, eyes on the bottom line, and ears that are open to our ultimate constituents, and those are the ratepayers. It's been an amazing few weeks meeting so many of the men and women here at the DWP who are dedicated employees, professionals, all of them, and I look forward to working with them and for the ratepayers. as we move the DWP forward. Thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Jill Banks-Barad. And first, I want to say how honored that I am to be appointed by the mayor and the charge that he has given us to shake up DWP. I take that very seriously, as well as my colleagues do. I also am very impressed with my esteemed colleagues, and I'm really looking forward to meeting with them over the next few years. You know, this is a very challenging time to be on this board. I'm excited. I think it's daunting, but I feel this is something that is very worthwhile. The public has a right to know what happens to their tax dollars. The ratepayers have a right to know what happens to their dollars. And I think that's one of my priorities. I'm particularly honored that the mayor has chosen two of us who sit on neighborhood councils to be on this board. You know, we have worked hard these past 10 years to say that we want a seat at the table. And we now have Bill Funderburk and I, we're both on neighborhood councils, we have a seat at the table. And I think that says something about the city, and I think it certainly says something about this mayor. It's not just words, he really followed through with actions. And also, lastly, but maybe not least, I'm the one here from the San Fernando Valley, where because of our climate, we pay the highest rates, we use the most water. And I know that my friends in the valley say, you got to do something, Jill. You're there to represent us. So I take that seriously as well. And I'm happy to be here to work with everyone, and I look forward to an exciting time. Thank you.
Well, at this point, I must state that this board meeting is being televised on Channel 35. That's the city's news channel. So if you would like to have a replay of this meeting, please feel free to check into that site. And that takes us to the roll. Barbara, would you please take roll?
We have Commissioners Barad, Fleming, Funderburk, Levine, and Noonan present.
Okay, the next thing on our agenda is to elect our board officers. And as a senior board member, I would like to take the indulgence, if you would, to nominate Representative Mel Levine for board president. I feel his political business and hands-on expertise would serve this board so well. And so I think we would all be very, very well served by you serving as president.
I'd like to second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And I think, in tradition, we'll exchange seats.
Okay. Thank you, Christina.
Right hands.
Eloquent. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the confidence that you have reposed in me, and I will do everything I can to justify it. The roll is now open for nominations for the office of Vice President.
I'd like to nominate Bill Funderburk, please.
Is there a second?
I second that motion.
Any conversation? Any plaudits? Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? This appears to be a unanimous vote. Congratulations, Bill. I'm looking forward to working very closely with you and the other members of the board.
Likewise.
Now, if I can find the agenda amidst all of these notes, we'll move on. The first item on the agenda after the election of officers is a report and briefing by the general manager. So, Mr. Nichols.
Thank you, President Levine, and congratulations on all of you being on the board. Pleased to have you, particularly congratulations to President Levine and Vice President Funderburk. Look forward to working with all the new members, Commissioners Broad and Fleming, and particularly pleased to have the continuation of Commissioner Noonan. I think that continuity is going to be very helpful to this board, and I think everyone will benefit from that the complexion of the board that we have here today. As you know from the very large binders that you received, there are a lot of very detailed issues that we go through here. There's a number of items, important items that you'll all be working with. I do hope in the future that there won't be quite as many items on the board agenda. This is probably one of the longer board agendas you'll see, and principally because due to the changeover, we had to forego a board meeting, and September tends to be a pretty just a pretty major meeting. So at this time, I anticipate this might be one of the more lengthy ones you do. My apologies for that. We have attempted to move up the date for delivery as we did to get the information out to you more quickly. We're going to try to continue to do that. I would state that trying to get it out to you earlier in the week before will probably result in the prospect of, at times, some supplemental agenda items added late on, just by virtue of the press of business or items that come up. But we will do everything we can to try to keep you well informed on this. And again, I apologize for the extraordinary depth of materials that you had to wade through this time. There's a couple of things I would like to cover today. One is an event that was just held yesterday, and I think it's important not just because of the event itself, but to put it in context. We were up at, several of us, and we're up at Mona Lake area, up at Lee Vining yesterday for a celebratory event. And that was for the agreement, a settlement agreement that was reached between the department, the Mona Lake Committee, Cal Trout, and the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. And in that settlement, we agreed to making a future modification to Grant Lake Dam, which is the dam that collects water from multiple four streams that then ultimately feed into Mono Lake. The Mono Lake decision happened back in '94. There was a major set of orders that came out in 1998. And this settlement agreement came after 12 years of scientific study as to how to best increase some flows to improve the habitat of Rush Creek flowing into that lake. A lot went into getting that done, but came out as a very good compromise. And that I bring this up because there are several compromises and settlements that have occurred in this last year in the Eastern Sierra. And it's some of those that I believe will be important for you to be familiar with as we move forward in other areas. We had an area in Inyo County called 40 Acres Development, and for years there had been concern about who had rights to Pine Creek flowing through that and the ability to use that water, and there's a storied controversy going back over that. That was resolved. And it was resolved in a manner to allow emergency water available for those landowners in that area. Something that put aside a long and difficult controversy up there. Similarly, up in Mammoth Community Water District had been using water for years as Mammoth grew. There was disputes with respect to future plans for use of that water. A lot of discussions in and around water rights matters. Led to some litigation that was settled very favorably for both sides in a manner that assures water supply going forward for that community in a manner that creates that water supply through funded conservation efforts by Mammoth Community Water District. And then there was just very recently by a prior board efforts to settle a dispute associated with one of our major dust mitigation on projects up on Owens Lake, and that project involved some conflicts between preserving cultural resources and putting out dust mitigation. Approach went forward that resolved that issue, met both requirements, also established a public benefit charge for some of the more emissive lands that were above the lake level in there, so that it provides some added public benefit for residents up in that area. And it clarified some of the control methods that might be used and hopefully provide a method to get less water-intensive ones going forward. All of these types of things have come together not out of a coincidence. It's come out together as a means to try to get greater clarity, try to get greater certainty as to what is the water supply that we have from the Eastern Sea area, how can we make sure we're doing a good job as stewards of the environment up there, and getting some better certainty with respect to costs. Because as we move forward, one of the things that we're going to spend a lot of time together on here is ramping up what we do in our local water supply and more water conservation, more recycled water, many of the items that several of you mentioned, greater groundwater capture, and cleaning up our groundwater aquifer in the San Fernando Valley. So getting certainty up there becomes a really importance in terms of what is our comfort level of being able to do that so that we can rely less on purchases from Metropolitan Water District and the impacts that has on Northern California. So these are, in addition to doing the right thing, it's important in terms of our long-term planning. Another item I'd like to bring to your attention here is spend a few moments on this. And I typically, by the way, don't spend a lot of time on the general manager's report, particularly when we have long agendas, but I felt it was kind of important to lay out a few items here. One is that later on in this year, and then going into decisions that will be made probably next summer, we're going to be dealing with, and this is not anything new that hasn't been discussed, we're going to be dealing with addressing adjustments to both our water and our power rates yet again. And I know that's not always an easy topic. Since we have already, our prior board established the current fiscal year budget as of last June, I think it would be helpful in as much as we've only been able to give relatively short briefings to you as new commissioners. I think it would be helpful sometime in the month of November, in one of our board meetings, to try to set aside some time to make you more aware as commissioners of that current budget and information there, to establish kind of a base level understanding before we then later on get into the adjustments that we would be undertaking and the reasons for those adjustments. So I would be looking for a sense of the board if that is something you'd like to do, and we'd be happy to prepare that information and get that in front of you. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you very, very much. Speaking for myself, I believe we would welcome all of that, both the briefing and also the clarity with regard to a resolution at Great Basin. Obviously, these are a bunch of very important issues for them and for us, and I believe that we will find that the members of this board are very, very interested in working collaboratively toward a resolution that will be mutually beneficial. So thank you for your report on both of those. Do any commissioners wish to comment or question the general manager on his report? Jill?
Is the general manager also going to report on our request?
That's the next item.
That's the next item? Okay.
So we'll move to the next item. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is comments and/or requests from commissioners relating to department operations, specifically an informational request on the Joint Training Institute and the Joint Safety Institute. This is what I referred to in my opening comments very briefly. What I think would be most helpful would be to seek from the general manager an overview either by him or his designee, and then open it up to questions, broad questions with regard to the informational request from commissioners.
I'd be happy to do that. In a moment, in fact, if you can come up and I'll give an introduction. We have with you today Chuck Kokoska. Chuck is the head of our power supply and operations at the department. I would like to have Chuck provide the background and history of the Joint Training Institute, the Joint Safety Institute, the reasons those organizations were created, the circumstances under that creation, and a little bit of the functions and relationships of those organizations to training and safety matters here at the department, a little bit over the structure and some of the achievements of that. And in particular, the reason I've asked Chuck to give some of that overview. Chuck was involved literally at day one with respect to that process on behalf of the department, working with labor on developing that. So he knows literally the full history of how that all came together, and I think would be well positioned to give you that background.
That would be very helpful.
Okay. Good afternoon. Again, my name is Chuck Acoska. Not only do I serve as the Director of Power Supply Operations, but I'm also a trustee on the Joint Safety Institute, Joint Training Institute, along with Ron Nichols, Aaron Benjamin, and Jim McDaniels on the management side. The impetus to this, to the start of the Joint Safety Joint Training Institute, actually started in the late 80s. And we were struggling as a department in the area of mostly safety. We had an injury rate in 2000 that was close to 5 times the national average for a utility. And at the same time, in 1995 and in 1998, we had 2 major downsizings in the department. We had over 10,000 employees in pre-1995. We downsized after that FSB. Then we had an SRP in 1998, and we downsized to close to 6,500 people in the department. With that downsizing, we also lost a lot of expertise, and one of the major areas that we lost a lot of expertise was in the safety, health, and environmental protection area. We had a group here at the department called SHEP. That group in 1998, after the separation package was disintegrated, it had over 150 folks in that division at the time, and they oversaw the corporate health and safety, environmental, and protection of the department. We were actually written up in 1999 in the Kalosha Reporter for actually disintegrating our SHEP division. It was actually a publication, was out through the state of California. What the department needed to do was to create a platform and an environment that we needed to improve safety in the company. But it all started actually in 1996, pre-JSI JTI, when in 1996 the department, IBW Local 18 and the department negotiated the first contract using mutual gains bargaining, MGB. And this was actually following 3 strikes, one in 1973, one in 1980, and one in 1993. And in 1996, when Bill McCarley came here, he worked with Brian DiArce, IBW Local 18, and they decided to have a mutual gains bargaining kind of negotiations here at the department. During those negotiations, one of the things that came out of that was the Joint Resolution Board, which encompasses the department management. All of the AGMs are on that, and several other folks. There's also the Brian DiArce, and most of the senior business labor reps are on that, and we meet on a monthly basis to deal with common interest issues here at the department. We formed joint labor management committees, and to this date we've trained over 1,000 people in mutual gains bargaining, interest rate bargaining concepts. When you're on a mutual gains, when you're on a joint labor management committee in this company, which we have over 100 committees, you are required to go through mutual gains bargaining, both labor and management, to be able to be on one of those committees. One of the benefits of mutual gains bargaining over the last 15, 18 years is that we've saw, especially in 1996 through 2000, we saw a 75% decrease in grievances as a result of mutual gain bargaining. Now, how the safety trust and the training trust started, in 1999, IBW Local 18 and DWP got together and they agreed to research the possibility of forming a joint safety trust. And they partnered, worked together, and what they did was they were looking into the private sector to form a safety trust that had a government, that would have a government application. What they found was the IAM Boeing, the International Association of Machinists, and the Boeing workers in Seattle, they had a joint safety trust. Safety training and safety trust have been up and running for several years. So they sent a team up there. They spent several days up there studying the model, And then they brought that down here to Los Angeles, and in 2000, the Safety Trust was started. IA Boeing also modeled their Safety Trust after the UAW General Motors Safety Trust. The JTI JSI is a tax-exempt trust. It's not a nonprofit. 2000, the Joint Safety Institute was started, and in 2002, the Joint Training Institute was started. It was approved here at the board. It was approved by the City Council, and then a city ordinance was established to establish the trust. Then it was adopted in the IBW Local 18 MOU. The way the trust is governed, there are 4 management trustees. The 3 of us and Jim McDaniel serve on that. And on the IBW Local 18 side, there's Brian D'Arcy and 3 senior labor representatives, actually employees also, that serve on that. The co-chair is rotated between labor management every year. Actually, this year, Mr. Nichols is the co-chair of that. And on the safety administration side, there are 2 safety, JSI safety administrators, a labor and a management person. On the JTI, again, there's a labor and a management person, and there's a 5th administrator that oversees the over 100 joint labor management committees here at the department. The funding for this is at the rate of 25 cents per hour per employee, and the role of the advisors is they act as consultants and liaisons between the divisions and the systems. Their field and their scope, they assist field folks, corporate health and safety, the division safety and training folks to develop safety initiatives and programs. The JSI, JTI administrators are heavily involved on a number of joint labor management committees in both water and power and in the individual divisions. Some of the achievements since the creation, close to 30 years ago, we had one of the highest injury rates in the nation. Since the start of the Joint Safety Institute, we saw a 75% incident rate change in the last 13 years. What we really have seen is a decline in what they call the lost workday injury rate, which is the more serious injuries. And also, in turn, it also affects our workers' comp costs. We have lower workers' comp costs as a result of that. 13, 14 years of JSI, JTI has been in business. We've seen a steady decline in the injury rates across the department and also the seriousness of those injuries. Just to date, the joint labor management process has been here since 1995. It's the whole, everything that we do here is part of this paradigm. On the Joint Safety Institute side, some of the accomplishments is we have Safety Institute workshops, and we've had over 16,000 attendees in the last 13 years across the department. When you do the math on that, I mean, we only have like 8,500, 9,000 employees, but there's a series of 10 workshops, and we've had over 16,000 attendees in those workshops. The most recent initiative that we have had, and just this year alone, we have a new program called Safe Start. This is our 2013 initiative. We've trained over 110 trainers, peer trainers in the company, and those peer trainers the Safe Start program has 5 two-hour modules just this year alone. Just in 2013, they've trained 11,000 attendees in those 5 modules. They're heavily involved in other parts of the department, too. The Joint Training Institute is involved in 10 different types of training workshops, and they've trained over 4,200 personnel in the last 10 years. They're working on the new engineer training program. They're heavily, especially the Joint Training Institute right now, is heavily involved in a program that ARM started several months ago, and it's called the Integrated Human Resource Plan, where what we do is we take the integrated integrated resource plan, and we overlay the human piece of it, the human aspect on top of the integrated resource plan, so that our human assets match the programs. And that initiative has been going on this year, and the JTI spends a lot of their time with that initiative. Actually, the management and the labor representatives in the JTI are both co-chairs of that initiative. And that's the briefing.
Well, I would like to add just, if I could, just one clarifying point at the beginning of what Chuck was explaining. In the 95 to 98 period of time when we were doing significant downsizing at the department, well, why was that happening? At that time, 1994 to 1996 was a time when there was an evaluation first by the California Public Utilities Commission of the potential of deregulating, I would kind of say more like re-regulating, the California utility sector. In 1996, they moved forward with a specific plan. In 1998, it happened. And the intent, really up until the last minute of that, was that all of the utilities, certainly all of the larger utilities, inclusive of Los Angeles and Sacramento Municipal Utility District, were going to be included in that as well. Had that happened, we would have turned over our transmission assets to the California Independent System Operator, and we would have divested our power supply, at least our thermal power supply, which is the vast majority of the power supply in Los Angeles. So there was a prior general manager at that time, went through an effort to say, well, we can't have this many people here. We really need to get down to a size that would be effectively, principally, a distribution company. And so they went through that, and then that changed. That didn't happen. We did retain our transmission. We were not part of the California Independent System Operator. We are not today. I don't anticipate anytime soon we will be. And so when you do that and you go through a downsizing, the process by which you do that on an equitable basis, you can't pick who leaves. So it tends to be a bit more seniority based. We lost a lot of the knowledge of this organization, and we didn't lose necessarily the people who would have otherwise just stayed on to do a distribution organization as well. So we needed we needed people to start with, and we needed to train the people and work on the safety issue at the same time. So that's just put a little bit more background for why this big downsizing and why are we at a higher number now than we were back then. There were a lot of other issues that came up during that downsizing as well, but that's just wanting a little bit of context.
If I can add two more points on this, just to clarify on the funding. This is part of the MOU. It's bargain item. The 25 cents per hour is, by the trust regulation, has to be reinvested in the employees of Local 18. So every program that the institutes put in place, that money that we put in to that trust has to be reinvested in the employees. So those are all fundamental points of the trust.
This is all very helpful and very much appreciated. It's very useful background. I guess the issue that really is on the table is linking the expenditures with these activities and results. The initial press report, which was in the Los Angeles Times, the initial one that I saw, at least, I gather there have been others, but the initial one that I saw a week ago Friday basically suggested that many millions of dollars couldn't be tracked, and that there was an inability to identify where the money went and how it was spent. And so I just want to ask a couple of questions along those lines, and then I'll open it up to my colleagues. And prior to the specific dollar amounts, there's a procedural question which I don't understand, which is why isn't all of this, in light of the fact that this is ratepayer money, why aren't the expenditures transparent in a way that the rest of the DWP is transparent? Why isn't this? Why aren't the dollars that are spent reviewed by this board and available to the public?
Well, I can explain that. The manner in which the trust was set up at its outset was created as a separate organization. It's been referred to as a nonprofit. It has nonprofit tax status, but it is a trust organization. Trust organization that was established by vote of the City Council. It was an organization that is, as Aram indicated, the provisions of which were written into the Memorandum of Understanding between the Department and IBW Local 18. So it was structured in a manner that the funds would go into there. It would be a joint labor and management determination as to what's the best utilization of those funds. That's how it's been structured from day one. The funding of putting those funds into both the separate amounts that go into the Joint Training Institute and the Joint Safety Institute do come before the board every year on that. We do periodically report back in general on some of the major programs that come out of that, but it just was never structured in a manner as it was requiring board action because of an effort to try to maintain a joint determination between labor and management as to what are the needs, where does this best work, how do we make certain in the process of doing that it doesn't duplicate other training efforts that we might be doing that might be required from statutory bases or other ways. So that's the reason for it being done. As to going on to the next point in terms of why isn't that information, wasn't that information immediately available? It requires an action of the trust board to be able to release information. The trust board hasn't met. It isn't an issue where an article comes out in the media and then the trust board automatically is meeting the next day.
When is the next meeting of the trust board?
I believe it's October 8th, I believe. Right. And this matter will be addressed at that meeting.
Okay, I would hope so. This is not an action item on today's agenda. It's an information item. So, as I understand the procedures, we can make some suggestions, but we're not agendaized for a specific action at this point. But one suggestion I would make is that at the next trust board meeting, that the board agree to make available to us and to the city controller a detailed accounting of how the resources that have come to these trusts have been spent. I've spoken with Ron Galperin, the city controller, on several occasions about this, and he's obviously appropriately concerned about the expenditures and the lack of specificity with regard to them. I know, Mr. Nichols, you have two letters from Controller Galper. I have a copy of the more recent one on September 27th, where he details a variety of documents that he's seeking, and I would very much hope that those get provided to him. And he also provided to me the tax return, most recent tax returns of the two institutes. These are public information, and I gather he just took them off of the internet. But I want to take a minute and simply identify 8 items that that deserve much greater specificity than is in the tax returns, at least. In the 2011-2012 Safety Institute tax return, the item reimbursed administrative expenses accounts for $549,870 without any detail. The item of training workshops, again without specificity, but clearly this appears to be the overriding purpose, but we don't know how they were spent. But broadly speaking, training workshops, $356,621,000. Dues and subscriptions, $101,978. Other, $109,267. And other salaries and wages, $128,719, which in 5 broad items is about $1.1 million. And in the Training Institute, the numbers the concepts are similar, the numbers are greater. Reimbursed administrative expenses without additional detail, $631,440. Travel, $75,311. Other salaries and wages, $348,809. And in the broad category of other, $663,481. And that's for a ground total of $1.7 million. So you've got these 8 items accounting for close to $3 million with almost no detail at all. And I would submit that in light of the fact that this is ratepayer money, even if these are separate institutions, the ratepayers are entitled to understand with much greater clarity how that money was spent. So I would hope that you would be able, by the next board meeting, which is 2 weeks from now, and it'll be after the trust boards meet, to be able to come back with much more detailed information with regard to those expenditures. And one other item that Controller Galperin and I discussed from his September 27th letter, where he lists a variety of documents he'd like. When we talked on the phone yesterday, he also suggested it would be helpful if you could provide bank records for any expenditures of $10,000 or over. And you can add that to the September 27th letter. I don't expect you to have this information today, clearly, but I do think it's reasonable to expect to get that information by the next board meeting. So that would be my request. Do other commissioners wish to comment or raise questions?
Sure. So, one, I too would like to see this agendized for the next meeting, right? So it's not just a request. So I'd like to see this agendized for the next meeting. The payments that are made to the trusts are made in the fiscal year, correct? So I'd like to know, and again, if you can tell me today, it's great. If not, we can figure it out at the next meeting. What's been paid so far in this fiscal year to the trust? How often do the funds flow from the DWP to the trust?
They're paid annually.
Okay, and have they for this fiscal year been paid yet?
I believe they have.
They've been paid at the beginning of the fiscal year, July 1. Okay. It's the payment due.
Because otherwise, what I would suggest is to agendize no further payments going to either of these trusts until we resolve some of the questions that the Commission President and that Mr. Galperin is certainly going to raise. I have just a couple questions because I actually read the tax returns. I'm trying to figure out what assets they own. So in addition to the cash, which is sitting there and which is substantial and which is problematic in a way that ratepayer money is going to this trust and it's being parked there, it's being spent on all the things that Commissioner Levine pointed out, but it's being parked there, and then this trust is gaining, in one of them, it's $10 million sitting there, and it's gaining the interest. So ratepayer money is sitting in a trust gaining interest for someone else. So that's a challenge for us. And they rent space, correct, from the DWP. The office space is rented space. But there are assets that are in excess, in both of them, in excess of $500,000. And they take depreciation. These are tax returns you signed, Mr. Benjamin. They take depreciation every year on these. So what possible assets would this nonprofit trust have to own? Usually that's land, a building, fine art, vehicles. I can't quite envision, there's only a couple of employees, correct? For the trust itself only has a couple of employees, because the employee costs, the salaries are fairly low. What possible assets does this trust need to own, and why are they depreciating them?
Well, so at a high, number one, we're going to request as the DWP members of the trust, we'll request information at the next trustees meeting. But at a high level, they have computers, they have training modules, and things that the trust owns and the department uses.
So there's probably an inventory of this somewhere, right? So because they're clearly tracking it to take the depreciation. So I'd obviously be interested in that. But I think you addressed the other questions, Commissioner Levine.
I had a question.
Ms. Barad?
Yeah, I think President Levine asked a lot of the questions that I had, but even though you talked about why you set it up and the accomplishments, I'm still not clear if there are internal training programs within DWP. Why are these additional ones needed? I still don't understand why you had to create these two these two institutes and do training. So that's one thing. I'd like to know why you needed to do that if there are internal training programs already in place. And the other thing, when you give us the accounting, I'd like to know what the salaries are of the trustees.
Well, the trustees and the employees.
And the employee.
It's my understanding that the trustees don't have a salary
Correct.
from this. It's $1 a year or something like that.
Well, then the
But the employees, I think,
Yes.
And with just one more question, just the kind of to Commissioner Broad's point, in the history of these trusts, right, is there a tracking mechanism to say X amount of money is invested this year and there have been declines, whether it's training for safety or whatnot? You know, there are metrics. You apply for a grant from the federal government, right? You have to prove at the end of the year not only what you did with the cash, how you spent the cash, but what the actual results were. So I'm sure if you're providing all these trainings, there have to be volumes of documents that attest to how successful these were, right? And to the point that you actually raised a little while ago about how recently this was brought up, some of these questions have existed since 2005 in the public and have not been answered. So it's been a long wind-up, I think, to ask some of these questions. I'm very confident that you all have the documents that back all this up, but the questions have been lingering out there, not just for a few weeks, but actually for years.
If I can clarify the first point Commissioner Broad made about the role of the Institute versus the traditional training and safety. For 25 cents per hour, what the institutes can do is seed some sort of a priority that both labor and management sees. For example, customer service across the entire department. There was a study made about how we can set up our systems to better our customer service when it comes to service planning and responding to construction activities across water and power. So as the recommendations come, I mean, the money that the department would spend following up on those, it's not the institution's responsibility. So, for example, training our engineers or our inspectors, following up on information systems, those are all expenditures that you would see on a normal department expenditures, but the Institute will seed the studies and the recommendations to make that a priority and provide that help at the beginning, and then from there on the department will take over. So,
well, if I can just jump in for a moment on that, and to follow up on your response to Commissioner Broad's question, what confuses me about this is however positive and helpful the contributions have been in terms of the safety and the training, why do you need a separate entity? If there's no reason that I understand why labor and management can't get together within the rubric of the broader DWP framework and create whatever priorities you want with regard to training and have it all open and available and transparent for the public to see. Why does this need to be done in an entirely separate institution, however noble and worthwhile the objectives and the results may be?
I mean, that's been the model that Boeing has used, for collaboration and.
Well, Boeing isn't a public entity that's funded by ratepayers. Boeing is a privately held company owned by shareholders, and they have their own way of overseeing. But this is a ratepayer-funded entity, and ratepayers are entitled to understand how their money is spent, and they don't. And this information has so far been cloudy at best. So that's what we're seeking.
Mr. President, I understand the concern, but I guess I'd like to speak to a little bit. Obviously, the genesis of this goes back before most of us were around associated with the department. But the reality of it is that, and just to be up front, we have a phenomenally difficult procurement process at the department. It can often take a year to 18 months from the time that someone has decided to do something to get something done. One of the things that this group does is, with funds that are approved, with a cap on what that is, predicated on the 25 cents per hour, consistent with, it's been approved by City Council in the past. The whole structure was approved by City Council, and the funds that go into it are approved. I would agree. I think that some greater transparency with respect to the funds. What you're seeing is whatever gets uploaded at a summary level that comes on into a federal tax return. And I've actually seen my federal tax return online before too, and it doesn't tell much about where my money goes and comes from either.
But that's all that's been available for us to see.
Granted, and I understand it. I'm not trying to defend that. I'm just saying you want to know why is this structured this way. Having been here for 3 years and working with this group, one of the things that comes out of this is working between labor and management as we go through, say, here are the safety issues, here's what we've seen, here's the problems we have, how can we get there, how can we get this done, what sort of efforts are done. We have commissioned people to go out, do studies, do RFIs, requests for information on things, bring in bids, get something done in probably 1/4 of the time that it takes to get things done through the department, when you're dealing with issues principally that are relating to the health and safety of our employees out there, but for the vast majority of that work. That, I think, is probably one of the main reasons it was structured the way it is. And as you will get a greater appreciation, we're very difficult to move quickly on things around here. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating for me. It will become frustrating for you as well. It just is what it is. We're trying to make some improvements on that, by the way, one of the reasons that we brought Gwen Williams on board to try to help us get that done in our supply chain effort. But she, as much as she works hard as she can at it, she can't fix some of those problems. So that's some of the reason for doing that. There is no reason for not having greater transparency with respect to this, and we will do our efforts to try to work with the other trustees and the trustees on the labor side of this to give you that transparency.
And frankly, that's the primary concern. Right. Look, 4 of us are new. This is 4 of our first meeting. Right. We are not steeped in the culture of the DWP, but I think you heard even in the opening comments from each one of us that transparency is a very important priority, broadly speaking, and I think it goes without saying that with ratepayer funds, transparency is critical. So that's what we're seeking, is transparency.
Understand.
Bill, did you?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions, and it's Mr. Acosta, right? And I really appreciate I was there in the energy crisis in 2001, and the dereg disaster that led up to that. You mentioned that the injury rate for DWP was 5 times the average utility at one point. Do you have, and that's improved, do you have, and you mentioned that the workers' comp issue was a big issue. The insurance for workers' comp doesn't just go up and down with mod rates, but it goes up and down with the demand and availability of the insurance. So there's a separate thing there. But do you have the mod rates?
Actually,
just offhand, but with the mod.
Actually, not with me at the moment, but we have injury statistics that go back 25 years.
Yeah, I'm interested in the mod rate, the DWP mod rate that the insurer is rating the pricing of the insurance off of. Historically, to get an idea of how that truly changed. The workshops that took place, how many people went to the workshops?
Well, we had, just on the Joint Safety Institute side, we had close to 16,000.
Yeah, you said 16,000
attendees.
Attendees, but how many individual people? Because they attended multiple workshops, right?
Pretty much, that was a mandate throughout the company. Just an example, we had a class called the Safety Information and Actions class. Just that one class alone, pretty much 95% of the department employees went through that, and just that class alone had 7,800 attendees over a 9-year period. And that was the prerequisite for most of the other workshops after that. So when you came in, boom, you had to go through the Safety Information and Actions. That led to other, like if we had supervisors, we have special 2-day supervisors class that talks about their roles and responsibilities as supervisors as it pertains to Cal OSHA, because they have a completely different role and responsibility than a frontline employee. And then we also developed one of the other initiatives that came out of the JSI was what's called a worker safety tour program. And what that did was that was a program where labor and management folks went out to look at the work site, make safety improvements. It was a good model for folks to go out there and see managers and labor communicating together, finding safety issues, solving safety issues on the spot before we had an incident occur.
I was just interested in knowing if there was a difference between the people and the attendees, but that's fine. You mentioned that Boeing was used as the model for the IBEW. When I looked online at the nonprofit tax returns for this trust, I found that there were other trusts around the country that are similar, that are joint training for safety and for health. And I wonder, Commissioner Fleming brought up the notion of using metrics to evaluate performance. If there is a per apprentice metric that's been applied or evaluated to determine the efficiency of the expenditure of the funds, as compared to other trusts that specifically administer electrical workers who are exposed to dangers also. I don't know if Local 11, for instance, has anything similar, but I know that Local 11 is different for the Bureau of Street Services, and they have electrical workers that are dealing with high voltage issues, and and you don't have to answer it now. Maybe if that could be included, because I don't want to take too much time up now unless you know the answers offhand. But
no, I don't know that.
I'm very interested in knowing, just in terms, not just more detail on what's been spent, but whether best practices have been applied to administer the money. I think that the purpose of this seems to have been very well intended, and I think that the concerns that have been expressed that I have is just, is the money being spent efficiently, and has it been compared to other ways of spending the money to get the same results?
Right.
So.
Well, despite the cross-examination, we very much appreciate the input. It's very helpful. It's a very helpful beginning. What is the process to agendaize this item for the next meeting?
Well, we'll put it on the agenda, consider it done.
And for potential board action, rather than just informational.
Right.
Okay.
But I think I would defer a bit to include as part of that some legal discussion that would be necessary, because in addition to just the topics, the technical, the financial side of this agreement and this arrangement is something that has been approved by council before. It is actually embodied in the memorandum of understanding, which has just been negotiated. That topic was not a topic that was even brought out for negotiation as part of that. So there is a whole other, irrespective of what I guess what I would put it, we will be looking for some legal thought to, irrespective of that. What can this board do, and to give you some insight as to what is possible, or what other steps outside of the board might be necessary should there be a desired change.
That would be very helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I have one other procedural question before moving on to the rest of the agenda. I would like to change the time of the board meetings going forward.
It's a legal question. I'll leave it to this gentleman here.
It's a legal question.
I'm not sure when and where to raise it, but I thought I'd raise it early so that there'd be plenty of notice if we can do this.
We can do it two ways. At the next regular board meeting, we can have it agendized, or we can call a special meeting, and at that special meeting would be at the time that the board desires, put it on the agenda at that time.
I would like to call the special meeting as soon as we can and move the subsequent board meetings to an earlier hour, which I think would be more convenient for many people.
That special meeting can take place on the board date, but it'll be at the time that you so desire.
So in other words, we could establish an earlier hour now, but have the special meeting that day to approve it?
Yes.
Good. Just for the record, I'm suggesting that we begin these meetings try this, and we may want to tinker with it, but begin these meetings at 11 o'clock rather than 1:30 on the first and third Tuesday of every month. Okay, we move to public comment.
No, I do have one speaker card for item 4. And that speaker is Jack Humperville.
Good afternoon. My name is Jack Humphreyville, and I'm very happy to see some fellow neighborhood council people here. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Bill.
Welcome.
I approached this matter of the joint safety and joint trust training institutes in a little bit different manner. I first became involved with the Department of Water and Power in late 2006 and 2007. And one of the first articles that was given to me was an article by Jeffrey Anderson that was in LA Weekly, where he went through a long memo that I think Mr. Chaudhry, somebody might have a better name, wrote to Mayor Hahn, criticizing a number of areas of the Department of Water and Power. He was particularly critical of the Joint Safety and Training Institutes. Over a period of time, I actually put in a Public Requests Act in 2011 for this information. An internal source, they prepared the information, but an internal source told me I was wasting my time because most of the information had been redacted. There were no training materials. There were no efficiency reports. This person, who has since retired, has told me it was a waste of time to even come downtown, certainly a waste of time to pay a dime a copy. I think in this situation, there's sort of a basic issue of trust. What is going on with the IBEW? What is going on with this $40 million, of which 13 hasn't been spent? Where's all the money been going? Are these efficient programs? And in particular, I've received a number of emails, which I get from time to time from people at the Department of Water and Power, that sort of were very critical of the training process here and the results. They basically thought they were a joke. The other thing that's happened is that a lot of people were afraid to mouth off about this or even investigate it because it was sort of career-ending type of material. And that sort of scares me a little bit. So I think in terms of looking at what's going on, I think there ought to be a whistleblower hotline. I think there needs to make sure that this is done independent of members of the IBEW and of DWP employees who might be IBEW members. I would also like to see a detailed spreadsheet for the last 10 or 12 years, just taking all the items down and going across so you can get a better feel for the trends. I would also like to get a better understanding who the subcontractors were and whether they were efficient. Bill, you sort of mentioned efficiency or metrics and things along those lines. I would also like to see who the employees were and whether they're IBEW employees and they absorbed a lot of overhead. Because my understanding of it is that when these two institutes were formed, one of the reasons behind them, there may have been some business reasons, but there are also reasons to absorb a bunch of the overhead associated with the IBEW because their dues were down, given the downsizing of the department. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We can move on to item number 5, which is public comments, and I do have cards. Please limit your comments to 2 minutes. The first speaker is Natalie Newton.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for hearing us today, and thank you for your service. My name is Natalie Newton. I am a research analyst with Unite Here Local 11, who represents the food service workers in your cafeteria. My understanding is that the staff will make a recommendation to the board in order to approve or not approve a new award to a new company that provides food service. And as the board faces this decision, I know that the board members also know that the Los Angeles Worker Retention Policy applies to these workers as well, especially in terms of retention of the workers and all other stipulations in the ordinance. I would also like to call to attention to the board as they make this decision that the DWP should be willing to subsidize at the same rate the new contractor at the same rate that it did the old contractors in and through the recession to today. The third issue is that the servants that have proudly worked in the cafeteria, including cooks, line chefs, cashiers, and others, have served the DWP for over 30 years. So as the board makes that decision to be mindful of the ways that, as public servants yourselves, to also honor an attitude and ethos of dignity and fairness for all workers who also serve the DWP and the public. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Ramon Mendoza.
Good afternoon. My name is Ramon Mendoza. I've been working for DWP, Sodexo DWP for the last 14 years and representing all of my co-workers. Some of them are like 30, 25, 27 years working. And we are very proud and serve Sodexo. To serve DWP, and we are proud and we all, excuse me.
The next speaker is Miguel Fernandez, and then after that, Ana Valegras.
Good afternoon. My name is Miguel Fernandez. I working for Sodexo DWP in this cafeteria for 30 years, almost half of my life, and I guess we all asking for what happened for us in this new contract, and thank you very much.
Okay, then Ana Valegras. Vallagars. Oh, there you go. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ana Valladares. I worry about the, and the no contract, and my group, I speak, for what's going on, because I don't see, contract already. I appreciate it, like I worked with Sodexo long times ago, and I like my company. Just I appreciate it, think about us, Thank you so much.
Next speaker is Tony Wilkinson.
I'm Tony Wilkinson, Chair of the Neighborhood Council Department of Water and Power Memorandum of Understanding Oversight Committee. Change is good for organizations, and as we welcome a new mayor and a new board, I hope we can all embrace the opportunity for a fresh look at the Department of Water and Power. Under General Manager Nichols, DWP conducted unprecedented public outreach in a campaign to explain the basis for its rate requests. It's continued to have open and candid discussions with the public on many other issues. I hope that in this new era, DWP can do much more to educate the people of Los Angeles about the basic water and power system and the challenges that we face together. The city and this department have an unqualified commitment to environmentally sensitive operations, and we embrace the environmental mandates. The reality, though, is that there is only so much that ratepayers can afford. Money to pursue environmental goals comes directly from funds available to repair infrastructure and to protect the reliability of service. This board will need to struggle with that balance, and the public needs to understand your challenge. Thank you very much for your willingness to accept this public service on what's probably the most challenging board in the city. We appreciate your service. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the next speaker is Jack Humperville.
My name's Jack Humperville. I'm with the Greater Wilshire Neighborhood Council. One of the great things that's happened to the Department of Water and Power is Ron Nichols. And I'd like to thank you for the great job you've done for your 988 days on the job, not 1,000 yet. And that includes your 7 days that you weren't paid for. But I think one of the things that Eric Garcetti mentioned is about shaking up the Department of Water and Power. I agree. The ratepayers are being socked for about $1 billion a year by the Department of Water and Power, whether it ranged from the 10% utility tax, the $250 million transfer fee from the power system to the general fund, pet projects galore by the city council and the mayor, former mayor, I might add, current mayor may have a few, the dumping of 1,500, 1,600 employees on the Department of Water and Power by the city, the dumping of $200 million on our pension fund, which is going to cost us $25 million a year. And I think there's probably, and then of course you have what I call the IBEW labor premium. That's probably $250 million a year, give or take. I think that's going to be your first job, is to figure out how we're not going to be forking over tons of money. We are not the city's piggy bank. We are not the piggy bank for the city council. I think that people will tell us that our rates are lower than other utilities. Well, they ought to be lower, and quite frankly, they should be lower given our legacy assets and given our high reliance on coal. I think there's also concerns that we have various things running amok. For example, the ratepayers advocate talked about how we're getting stuck for $250 million on the feed-in tariff program, which was not even put out to competitive bid. All I know about it is an investment memo I saw from some investment groups that talked about rates of return that would make even aggressive hedge fund managers blush. So I think, in going on here, I think there's a number of issues you need to address. One of the things I'd suggest you do is read chapters 9 and 10 of the PA consulting report of August of 2012, where it talked about some of the process improvements the Department of Water and Power could use. It includes benchmarking. Benchmarking, its processes, its employees, its pay raises, its capital expenditure programs, and all sorts of other things that are normally done, like at Edison or any other normal types of operators. I think it also involved, talking about shared services and customer service and the body counts there. It talked about work rules. It talked about, I think one of the other areas we need to talk about is health care and how how the maximum benefit can be $18,900 a year. How does that compare to the city? So I think there's a lot of things you can do. One last point is I think there needs to be a coordinated effort to channel the requests from the city council and from the city through a centralized point, rather than having public officials meddling in the affairs of the Department of Water and Power. It is not fair to the employees, and it's not fair to the ratepayers. We need to have a good overview of what is going on, including a detailed analysis of all the pet projects, whether it's the Elysian Park, whether it's Griffith Park, whether it's Silver Lake, and all sorts of other goodies. Thank you very much.
Okay, the next speaker is Isara Lucero. Lycero? Lucero? Okay. Then the next card is Juliana Baladeras. Juliana Baladeras? No? Okay. Then that concludes the speaker cards for item 5.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for your comments. The next item on the agenda is potential comments or reports from our ratepayer advocate. And what I would propose is that you join us here at the table for the remainder of the meeting and henceforth. But feel free to deliver your report from wherever you'd like.
We're one chair short at the moment.
We'll find one.
I would support that proposal,
yes,
Mr. President, to have the ratepayer advocate up here.
First, I'd like to welcome the new commissioners and the returning commissioner to the newly constituted board. As your other direct reportee under the charter, it's my office's responsibility to look at independent public analysis from a ratepayer perspective, looking at things that impact water or power rates. It's a new function, it's a new office. We're learning how this works. We'll need to work out the process for doing this over time. Because of the scale of the office, we have to pick our projects. And in addition, I'll have to let you know when the scope of the analysis is abbreviated or as full as I would like to provide you guidance in your decisions when thinking about the ratepayer perspective.
Well, I actually know that I speak for all of my colleagues, even though I haven't spoken with them about this, but having heard their comments in public from time to time, we're all very, very pleased about this position. We're delighted that you hold this position, and we're looking forward to working closely with you.
Thank you.
And we'll find another chair. I don't know if we'll find it today, but if we don't find it today, we'll find it at the next meeting. If we can find it today, we will. But that's above my pay grade.
Can I say something?
Please.
Dr. Pickle, you welcomed my wife and me to the neighborhood, and I really am proud to be part of a city that has the guts to put somebody like you up to look out for the rights of the ratepayers, and I hope that we can work collaboratively together with the ratepayer advocate to make sure that a lot of the interests are taken care of.
Thank you. And also thank you for taking my neighborhood council seat.
Felicia does not necessarily agree with that, but we're working on it.
Thanks. Okay, members, we now move to the consent calendar. Does anybody wish to remove any item from the consent calendar?
Please.
Yes.
And a question about the consent calendar to begin with, given that we're all new here. I'm trying to figure out, is there a lens through which to look at the consent calendar to figure out what goes on and what is not on? So it seems to be a mix of things that are on there. So it doesn't seem to be a threshold dollar amount, for example, that triggers being taken off the consent calendar, et cetera. So I don't know quite the answer to that, and it's something that I know that you as president and certainly the general manager work on together. But it would be great to see, one, for time purposes, it's great to see the more things we can put on a consent to take care of. But also, my understanding is that even items that are on the consent calendar, the staff that has to do the backup for them has to come and sit through the presentation, even if we ended up adopting them in a consent. And that's a waste of their time, I would take it. So I'm wondering if we can find a better formula for figuring out what's on a consent and what's not.
Well, it sounds to me like you're asking two questions. One is, how does it get on or not get on?
Right.
And the other, if I understand it correctly, is once it's on, and if we know that nobody wants to pull it off, then can we allow the staff who are here because of that item not to come?
Exactly.
So is this a legal or a general manager's question?
Ron, you want to take this?
Well, let me answer the latter one first. Number one, procedurally, any commissioner can request to pull an item. And through that discourse, and it happens virtually every meeting, there are items pulled. A handful of items are pulled. And that means, and that can be done two ways. One, it can be a matter of taking the item out, then it just gets considered just like one of the other items for approval for discussion. And there's whatever question comes about that, you will notice and you will see at the end of the consent agenda, there will be a mass exodus in this room. And the reason for that is we have people here for each and every one of these items that can answer your questions with respect to that. And so there's no problem with that. We're happy to answer any question you might have with that. When a pull an agenda item, we do that. And in addition to that, as it pertains to any item, and happily have counsel jump in if he thinks I'm stepping into his turf. If there's an issue that simply does not have adequate information for you, whether it's on the consent agenda and you've discussed it, or whether it's on the item for approval and discussion and you discuss it and you want more information, you're not comfortable making a decision on it, we will at times advise you as to, did we not do our job and get it to you early enough? And that happens, and you'll hear a lot about that. Or is it a matter of such that we really do need to make a decision, here's would be the consequences, and we would have further discussion with respect to that. Otherwise, if it's an item that's simply not enough, there's not something that the world is going to stop. If we don't have that, it can get put over to the next meeting as well. So there's a lot of fluidity in the agenda in that respect. Now, going to the first question, it's an area of art with respect to things, to be honest with you, with things that go on to that agenda. They tend to be items that are more in determination of myself, of staff, of our board's secretary, and of the board president, that they are typically not controversial items or not anticipated to be, as part of trying to move the agenda forward, because information is provided along with those in the document. Other areas that are just kind of more ministerial, but do require board action, because quite frankly, most things require board action in this department. There's not an awful lot that's delegated down to the general manager and the assistant general managers. So that's its history of how things have tended to be on there, and the nature of them that go on that. I expect that we'll get a sense of this board. What are the things that are important to you? What are the things that you want to dig into and have questions on? I would suggest, just given past, that will change over time too. Over time, there will be things that you become accustomed to, you're more and more familiar with, and say, that's all right. We can put it on that. But I would anticipate early on quite a few things will get pulled from the agenda until you get that level of comfort. So that's a long answer to a short question.
I wonder if this might help. I'm not sure that it would, but I think Commissioner Fleming's goal with the second part of the question is so that people don't have to spend time here when they're not going to be needed. Perhaps we could, at the very beginning of every meeting, ask if any item is going to be pulled from the consent calendar, so that someone's here for 5 or 10 minutes, and those items that aren't pulled, then people could leave at least.
And that generally is the practice. It's the discussion that we had up front, the level of discussion that I had in my general manager's report. Having this other item on the informational item is unusual to have that much. Right. Typically within the first 5 minutes, we are into that consent agenda, and the very first order of business is to go through and ask, are there items that any individual commissioners want to have pulled? And that's, like I said, I said at the end of the consent agenda. I was wrong, actually. At the beginning of it, when those determinations are made, is when you see.
So you get the mass exodus earlier than today.
Sorry. Thank you for allowing me to clarify that.
Well, on that very helpful note, are there items that commissioners wish to pull from the consent calendar? I have one, item 28.
I have 4, one of which is item 28, 13, 14, which I think we could do together, and 22.
13, 14, and 22, and 28. Are there others?
Yes, I just have a quick question about item 12.
So you want that pulled?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, at the moment we have pulled 12, 13, 14, 22, and 28.
And Mr. President, we would like to just pull item 28 altogether and defer that to a subsequent meeting.
Okay. Okay.
I had item 28 and 12. It sounds like 28 is pulled. Yeah.
Mr. President, when you defer an item, you will have to take a vote to defer it.
Okay. Is the appropriate time to take the vote at the moment of the announcing of the deferral, or when we get to that item?
Generally, when you decide to defer it.
Is there a motion to defer item 28 to a subsequent meeting?
So moved.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
It's deferred. Do you want to defer it to the next meeting, or do you want to just defer it indefinitely?
We intend to probably likely defer to the next meeting, but we'll see if there are additional work that needs to be done prior to that.
All I'd probably suggest is that item 28, given the level of interest in it, probably wouldn't be a good candidate for a consent calendar.
I got that direct. I'm slow, but not quite that slow.
Okay, so I would suggest that can we approve all of the non-pulled items in one motion? So is there a motion to approve items 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 23, 24, 25, 26, and 27?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? They are Approved. Okay. Thank you all.
I'm assuming they want to need speaker cards.
Okay, well, let's move then to item number 12. Mr. General Manager, what's the process of proceeding on a particular item?
If you would like to have, if there's questions that you want to pose on an item, you can pose those questions. If you would like a presentation with respect to the item, we can do that, as well. If you would like to do both, we can do both.
Commissioner Noonan and also Commissioner Funderburg both have 12. So Commissioner Noonan raised it first, so I'll call on her first.
And if we would have our two staff representatives
they could introduce themselves.
Michael Sullivan, Fleet Services.
Tom Mandenbury, Fleet Services.
Thank you. I feel like our agenda package has improved so drastically over the years, and I really feel that the staff has really listened to what this board or the previous board required, and that is, who bid, what were the bid amounts, what's our history with that vendor. And it seems with this particular item, a lot of that information is missing. And I don't know if that's because we're doing a cooperative purchase with the state of California, but is that information still not available to us? Because I think it's very important to understand why you're recommending that we award this to Winter Chevrolet.
Well, I'm trying to think of what we had missing in the versus the previous one. This is a cooperative purchase to replace 85 vans, 50 of them that are 14 years old that have over 150,000 miles.
The general request is there, but it doesn't state who it was bid out to, how the bids came in. It doesn't really talk to what's going to happen to the vans that you won't be using. Can we just terminate the leases? If we own them, will we sell them? Is there any recoup, to the department, to the ratepayers? I just felt that as we're improving so much with these agenda items, I felt this was very vague.
We'd be glad to include that in the future purchases. This one here, there's no leases, they were rentals, so there is no recoup on the other end. Although,
is there a lease termination penalty?
There is no lease. These are not leased. We have these other ones on a base rental for temporary projects. The ones that the department owns with the excess mileage will be salvaged and recoup the cost, or recoup the funds from the other ones.
Okay, maybe you can give us some background, too, how the cooperative purchase with the state of California works. What's that protocol? How do they bid out, this kind of investment?
Basically, excuse me, Gwendolyn Williams, Director of Supply Chain Services. When a cooperative purchase is done, it's a number of organizations get together and, one organization goes out with a solicitation with the understanding that there will be a number of other organizations that will participate. It's a highly recommended, cost-effective way of procuring things because we have economies of scale because of the largeness of the potential participants. So in this case, the organization that was the state of California that did the solicitation. So we don't see the bids. The bids come in with to go into the state of California.
How do we know they're competitive then?
They go through a competitive process.
But we're trusting their process and their protocol.
We trust their process and their protocol, and we go in and look comparatively at the prices that they get in terms of what we've seen historically, and if they're adequate, then we move forward with using that cooperative agreement.
I think that's what's missing. I mean, aside from not having any definitive bids here, there's very little historical information, so I think that would really be helpful for us in the future to have that kind of addendum.
So you'd like some information in terms of the bids that came into the cooperative agreement? Okay.
And I'm sure if you asked for the bids, I can't imagine why the state of California wouldn't provide you with...
No, they would give us a summary.
I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
I just had two questions. One, there appears to be a local small business. It's a subcontractor here. Is there any way that the local small business can be the prime over Winter Chevrolet as the sub? Number one, and number two, maybe my own why are we going to Elk Grove to buy cars? That was just kind of my, probably a really stupid question, but why can't we use a local business that will impact our economy and not Elk Grove's?
Well, we could have used, the thing that we juggle all of the time is local business participation versus cost. And it's a difficult balance because we have a fiduciary responsibility to the ratepayers, but we also have a responsibility to try and make sure that people in our area get to participate in the contracting opportunities. Winter Chevrolet is local.
The local agencies were allowed to bid on the state contract. Winter Chevrolet was the winner.
Isn't Winter here?
No, Winter's in Garner.
not.
But because they're being delivered out here, the local business tax comes here to the LA City.
So when it was competitively bid, it was offered statewide.
Mm-hmm.
So you do have local vendors around here that actually bid on it.
Mm-hmm.
So we did look at that aspect of it. So they just weren't the successful bid.
And you had a question about small businesses?
I just was uncertain about how things were structured in terms of making sure that when I saw the Elk Grove, that's just what flagged it for me. It was not just the sales tax, but you have commissions that are being paid and everything else, and multiplier effects for commissions, and is that being for a commoditized product like a car? I just didn't know if there was that big of a discrepancy. And
we have purchased vans from local dealers in the past, but it's not a part of this particular procurement.
Thanks.
And I have one quick question on this, and it's less specific to this one topic, actually, and more just because it's our first meeting, and more about so the information was terrific, and the binder is very helpful. One of the elements that's missing, though, in all of these is even a line or two about whether we've been involved, the department's been involved in litigation with the vendor or the contractor, whomever it may be. And it'd be great for us to know, I think, whether or not a Chevrolet dealer or a contractor of some sort has had a history with us that's been less than stellar. Some of these will say, they've done work for us in the past, they've been good, but it never specifically mentions litigation. And I think I don't want to see us go down a road where we're entering into contracts with folks with whom we have a litigious past. So I just think that'd be really helpful if folks could add that to each of the appropriate agenda items.
Good point.
Other comments or questions on this item? Is there a motion to approve it?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Sure. I'll second it.
What did you say?
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm going to abstain.
Commissioner Funderburk abstains. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 13 and 14, I would assume they can be taken together.
Sure.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Lou Feldmeyer, Assistant Director, Supply Chain Services.
Joe Delacerda, Supply Chain Services.
This is a way for us to get to know the staff. That's good.
Yes.
That's right.
So I apologize for all the toner cartridges you have to buy, and I think we are probably the reason why.
We won't answer that one.
So it was one. Obviously, the number stands out, right? Because $3 million for toner cartridges hurts. But the larger question I really had, and it was one that was just kind of addressed, was about cooperative purchases. And I wonder if you could, this one is with the city, I believe, right?
Yeah. No,
but if you could kind of walk us through how those cooperative purchases work, how often we try to do that. Is it usually a default? Is it the first place we go to try to buy things like, a commodity like toner cartridges, right, which are pretty generic? So if you could just walk us through the new ones of us, that'd be terrific.
Yeah, to answer your question, we try to do this as often as possible with typically the Department of General Services, who typically is a bigger user of these off-the-shelf type of products. So the department's requirements and other city departments were part of the solicitation. So it was all put together. and it went through this reverse auction process. Don't know whether you're familiar with the reverse auction concept. Okay, I won't bore you with those details. But yeah, so our requirements, we aggregate those requirements together, obviously to get better pricing.
And that's a standard you'd follow with almost. How do you determine which ones you go out and kind of reach out and say that?
Again, it's going to have to be kind of shared commodities. They're not buying transformers and cable, obviously. So these off-the-shelf type products, janitorial products sometimes, toner cartridges, papers, other office supplies.
And there's a centralized listing somewhere of this that you all kind of share, all the different departments
Yes.
share, so you get a sense of,
Yeah, we have a good relationship with them.
Okay. That's great. I'm sorry to have kept you over for that, but I just had a big question on that.
I actually was going to ask the same question, so I appreciate your asking.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is there a motion in support of items 13 and 14?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? They're both.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 22.
Marty
Yes, sir.
Adams.
I'll go ahead and address this unless the details get beyond me, and I have my staff here. This is application for us to try to fund half of some public access and habitat improvements with a state grant, part of the Owens Lake Phase 7A project. It's just a piece of the larger project which we're obligated to do, and which we just got a lease from the State Lands Commission about 2 weeks ago. But this is an aspect that does fall under the guidelines of a state grant, so we're seeking to get some funding as we look at future projects on the Owens Lake. We're hoping that there might be some funding besides funding from the ratepayers. This is the first opportunity like this that we've seen.
So I guess you've begun to answer some of the questions, right? So we're legally obligated to do this. We're already down the road of having a 700 and some odd, $750 million or so for this visitor center, right?
Yes, actually, this is $700,000 in this.
I'm sorry,
but
millions of thousands.
So this is part of the Phase 7A project, which is going to be coming to you. The bids are actually open on the street, and as a matter of fact, tomorrow there's another job walk with potential construction contractors. That's estimated to be a $160 million job. This is a piece that is consistent with the master project for Owens Lake. Phase 7A is envisioned to be the first trial of trying to save water, do more waterless dust controls, provide public access in good habitat areas. So this is kind of a model for the future. This is something that the State Lands Commission looked for, as opposed to some kind of payment for the lease or some kind of offset, some kind of environmental mitigation, was to work on this public access piece. It's the first piece like this that we've done, but it's consistent with where we want to go in the future in the lake. But it's about 0.5% of the overall project, but it's the one piece that we have a chance to finally have some other contributions for.
Marty, if you could just provide, because we have new commissioners that don't have the history of some of this, just briefly, what 7A includes, physical area, types of things that we're going to be doing that of which this is but a piece, might be just a little bit of context.
Certainly. Phase 7A, in 2006, when we came into our last, most recent agreement with the Great Basin, and then it was captured in the 2008 State Implementation Plan, required us to do another 13 plus miles of dust controls on Owens Lake. 10 of those miles were completed. There's 3 miles that were remaining over 6 separate little areas, and those were originally envisioned to be done with a waterless dust control. We were trying a process called moat and row, which was basically to put rows of almost like farm hedgerows, but in this case rows of soil with space in between. We went round and round with State Lands Commission for probably a year and a half, and finally were denied permission to do that project. So because we're required to do dust controls, but it's on state-owned property. So when we did not get permission to do that, we had to come up with a new dust control process and a new way to do that. And we did not want to put additional water on Owens Lake. At the same time, we realized that there are places on Owens Lake that water may be the only viable solution to control dust because of the soil conditions. And so simultaneously, we were working on a master plan, which has become the department's master project, that we're trying to move forward at a better future for Owens Lake. And we had an opportunity to mix the different kind of control methodologies that are currently allowed on the lake, and be able to do a dust control project to finish those last 3 square miles spread the water differently, actually have a little bit of water savings with this project, implement gravel, vegetation, and some shallow flooding methods in a way that it basically was habitat neutral, water neutral or better, and allowed us to meet these last 3 miles of dust controls to get us to the 45 miles that the city's committed to. And so this is the last piece that we've agreed to at this point. It is a commitment that the department made 7 years ago, and so we need to get this piece done. This aspect is just the trying to get us over the hurdle into a different vision for the lake. And part of it is public access and habitat improvement in appropriate areas, and then reduced water use in areas where the water is doing nothing but dust controls.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate the larger picture. I guess the question was $750,000 for a visitor center, right? Which is, I mean, you're asking for half it back from the grant, but the overall cost for the visitor center was $750,000?
It's actually, it's more of a trail and access complex to get people in safely in the areas. One of the issues on the lake is that the lake is open to the public, and we're trying to direct public access and public use of the land in a way that's consistent with our projects, consistent with the construction activities that we have out there. So it's more most of this is to develop a trail mechanism and consistent. Basically, it's a starting point for what the master project will do. In comparison, when we did the 2 square mile Phase 8 project, the gravel project, we paid $500,000 to the state as a mitigation for having to remove some habitat. So it's consistent with that notion. In this case, they said, let's try to implement the ideas of the master project as opposed to doing like a habitat direct mitigation.
Right. I'm just trying to figure out how many folks actually visit it and whether you need to spend $750,000 to build trails if no one's ever going to use the trails to go look, other than DWP folks going to do the right thing there.
There's quite a bit of enjoyment of the lake, particularly in terms of Audubon and other folks that enjoy the birds and the wildlife out there. I don't know if we have any numbers. I know that there's a growing number of people who go on the lake and to view the lake as part of the Pacific Flyway, and it's becoming a very important aspect in wildlife in California. I think Audubon's actually designated as one of the important points on the West Coast. And I think that part of the work with Inyo County is that as we make certain improvements on the lake, they'd like to see the lake have an aspect that would attract attention, attract tourism, attract something to bolster the local economy, and that's part of the mutual set of goals we have for the master project. Is we need to save water. We need it to be a good project for the local area. We need it to be positive for the habitat that we've created, not have losses there. And this is like I said, the kickoff point to try that direction. It'd be consistent with the access that's part of the Lower Owens River project, where public access was always envisioned as part of that project. There is a growing interest in the area, and like I say, I don't know how many people exactly to tell you. I can tell you that the number is growing, and it's envisioned it'll be growing substantially in the future.
And all you're asking us for today is the ability to apply for a grant to try to get money back.
Right. We need your permission. Right. All it is to allow us to apply to get this money from the state. We believe that we don't know if we'll get all the money. We believe we have a good shot at getting at least a good portion of it, and any amount helps.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Is there a motion to support it, to approve it?
So moved.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. It's approved. That takes us through the consent calendar. I would like to move that we defer item 29. I'll explain my reasons. This is by no means a... This does not signify anything negative at all about this item, the mitigated negative declaration. But it's being a new board, 80% a new board. I was just taken aback by the staggering amount of money that we're talking about in this item. And I know it's very preliminary and just talking about authorizing the earliest stages of moving toward a mitigated negative declaration. But when we're talking about an item of this magnitude financially, I'd just like to know more about it. And by the way, I salute and thank the staff for getting all of this to us as early as you did. This was very early and very helpful, but still somewhat overwhelming. And so just to have an opportunity to look at this more closely without in any way suggesting any negative views, I'd like to defer it.
Just for some additional guidance, I can make sure that we get the information you need next time around that. Would it be helpful to you, not in great detail, because we could, again, overwhelm you in detail?
Well, you already provided a lot of detail.
Well, what I was trying to do, I'm trying to get a feel for, just want to make sure that we're responsive to your needs and interests for background and context on this. Would it be helpful to let you know, just in general, what have our other water recycling projects been?
Yes.
Their sizes, their volumes and
Yes.
such, to give an idea of just some history to put this in context with what we at least have done?
Absolutely.
We wouldn't have to go into, as much as as engineers we love to go into a lot of detail on this, we could give you, I think, something that would help put this in context.
That would be great, and I suspect that you have 5 board members who are very, very strongly supportive of water recycling.
Right.
It's just that this is a huge project, and it would be nice to know a little bit more about it, and that context would be very helpful.
Okay, we'll do that. I believe you have to take a vote to do that.
I move that we defer this item 1 meeting.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
It's deferred 1 meeting.
Thank
you. And I hope I didn't inconvenience you too much by doing this, but this is a big.
Not a problem. We have the time frame is such that we can deal with that additional time.
Item 30, resolution authorizing payment of premiums for the excess workers' compensation liability insurance for policy year 2013-14 for a total amount not to exceed $1,986,336.
I have a question.
Let's.
We're having staff.
Is there staff coming up, or is the staff?
Commissioner,
Yes,
I'm
okay,
Phil Leiber, the Chief Financial Officer. I could give a brief overview of this, and if you would like more, we have the staff and the insurance broker who could answer any questions you have.
Terrific.
Okay. Let me just say a few words. We have a comprehensive insurance program in place to help mitigate losses from a variety of sources. Our annual budget for that program is about $18 million. This particular program is about 11% of that. This is our excess workers' compensation insurance program. This would be for the term that starts at the end of this month and is for 1-year period. The purpose of this particular coverage is to provide excess coverage. It's for the catastrophic claims, whether it was a very high injury cost for one employee or whether it was an incident that affected multiple employees. It provides coverage for any claims over $1 million. For any claims less than $1 million, we self-insure for those. This was the result of a competitive process, both in the selection of our insurance broker, Wells Fargo, and the process that they undertook to market the risks. They approached 18 potential carriers. Unfortunately, we didn't get a lot of interest in this particular risk. A number of the carriers cited the concentration of exposure in terms of a large number of employees at one location. Nonetheless, we did have 3 carriers willing to consider this risk. We are proposing to go with the 2 carriers who underwrote the program last year. That would be Liberty Mutual and Aegis. Liberty Mutual provides $35 million of coverage above the $1 million deductible that we have, and Liberty Mutual provides coverage above that. Again, this is...
Phil, excuse me, Phil, can I ask you to speak a little more closer to the microphone?
Oh, sure. Sorry about that.
I'm here and over here.
Okay. That pretty much concludes my remarks.
Perfect timing. Thank you very much.
I didn't have a whole lot more to say. But again, it's about 18% of our total premium. We think we did have a good competitive marketing effort for this, and there's not a whole lot more I would say about this, but we have the full team that was responsible for our program and this particular marketing effort who could answer any questions.
Any questions? Commissioner Barad.
I wondered about why it was necessary to have a separate premium for, catastrophic injury. don't insurance policies normally cover something like this, or death and dismemberment, or whatever they call it? Why is this necessary to have a separate policy?
Well, I'd almost hesitate to, or almost have to say there's no normal in terms of how insurance programs are structured. Entities choose to kind of slice and dice and retain these risks in a variety of different ways. We've made the decision to self-insure for claims up to $1 million. Anything above that, we choose to transfer the risk to a commercial carrier in exchange for a premium. And then even above that, so even above a deductible, you'll see in the next program that we talk about whether that risk is borne by one carrier or multiple. That's kind of work that the insurance broker has to do to try to get the most effective, cost-effective coverage for us.
All right, so now, in case of a really catastrophic injury, let's say a lineman, I would think that in some cases, of course, that might be very rare, but the result could be like $10 million. So how does that get handled? Wouldn't that just wipe this out?
No, this would provide any amount of coverage, so we could have 10 incidents during the year for $10 million. This program would cover all of them. In each case, we'd bear a $1 million deductible for each incident.
Okay.
Now, other insurance programs might have a set annual aggregate limit for the year, where, in your case, 10 incidents, if the first incident or two could wipe out the coverage, and
Yes.
we'd be exposed for the rest. This is not the case in this one.
I don't see on here that, did you actually list the insurance companies? I know you mentioned Liberty Mutual.
Yes, on page 3, near the bottom, we did indicate that we were able to negotiate a premium decrease with Aegis and Liberty, who are our incumbent carriers. A lot of times, you'll see these memos, and we may not be completely through with marketing the effort. That's, in fact, the case on the next one, so we don't have all the details of the carriers. In this particular one, we did.
Okay, thank you.
I just would like to add that I really appreciate the summary of the carriers that you reached out to. In the past, I really felt that was missing, and I feel that Wells Fargo Bank, as our broker, is really doing their due diligence and their best effort on behalf of the ratepayers. So it's something that I appreciate and that I expect in the future. Thank you.
And I would add that we try to be attentive to the requests of the board and improve these packages over time so that a lot of your questions are addressed.
Other questions or comments? Is there a motion in support of this item?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
There's nobody opposed, so the item is passed.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you.
We are now on item 31. Resolution approving payment of premium for the corporate property insurance program, November 1st, 2013 to November 1st, 2014, to Wells Fargo Insurance Services to provide coverage for LADWP and other facilities where LADWP has operating agent responsibility.
Okay, and again, Phil Leiber, I will cover this one as well. Same type of summary overview. If you have additional questions, we have staff here who can answer that. This is another element of our insurance program. This comprises about 39% of the $18 million premium we pay each year. This provides property coverage, so it's all of our facilities ranging from small buildings to our large generating stations. The overall program provides $500 million in limits, so unlike the other program, once the $500 million is gone, that's it in terms of this program. It has deductibles that range from $500,000 up to $10 million. It's $500,000 on our general buildings, large assets such as the generating stations, in excess of about $100 million in value. We have a larger limit of $10 million. This program runs from November 1st, 2013 through November 1st, 2014. We have a lot of information on who will be providing this coverage, although because it's a lot more complex program, we still have a few pieces to fall in. There have been 27 carriers that have been approached by the broker, 11 to provide primary coverage, 9 London carriers, and 7 excess carriers. I do have some information about where they will line up. It is a more complex program. A lot of times in insurance you'll hear the word towers and layers. This includes both. The overall cost of this program is expected to be $7.5 million or less. That was our initial indication. As we're getting closer to finalizing things, we think it will be probably closer to $7 million, but we're still asking for authority for the $7.5.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, I had a question, and this would apply to the other one as well, but just generally, how long have we been working with Wells Fargo? Because I wasn't part of that process to approve the broker.
For our insurance brokerage services, we put out an RFP that's for a 3-year term.
3-year term.
3 years, yes. I believe Wells Fargo joined in 2011.
Mm-hmm. And were they the broker prior to that?
No. Avery, perhaps, you can tell me who the prior broker was? Or?
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions, other comments? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, it is approved. Item 33. Item 32. Resolution authorizing Los Angeles Department of Water and Power participation in the prepayment of the Visitor Center and air slots of the Hoover Power Purchase Agreement.
And again, Phil Leiber, I will provide a summary of this one. This is the kind of item I very much enjoy bringing to the board. It's an opportunity to save money. Much of what you'll be confronted with is sending money in the other direction. On this one, we get to have the same service that we get from this contract at a lower cost if we follow this recommendation. And let me provide just a little bit of context. We are dependent on debt financing to pay for a portion of the capital projects that are used to provide service to our customers. Some of that debt is on our own balance sheet, and other amounts of that debt are on the balance sheet of third parties. In this case, this particular recommendation allows us to reduce the cost of a power purchase agreement for hydropower from Hoover Dam by reducing the cost of debt that's on that project. Part of the cost of service that we receive from Hoover is debt service on 2 capital projects that were undertaken at the dam for a visitor center and facility related to the operation of the dam called air slots. Our share of the debt service on that facility is about $2.3 million per year, and unfortunately this debt carries a relatively high interest cost of about 8 to 9%. We have the opportunity to just essentially get rid of that high cost debt. Because there were some complexities, one of the things we explored was just having that entity refinance the debt. We ran into some barriers there, so instead what we had to do is we are just going to make a prepayment. It will be used to pay down that debt, and then we will amortize the cost of that prepayment kind of in the same shape as we would have been making payments on the debt service. Bottom line is our payments every year are going to be lower if we do this. And it'll just save ratepayers money. The present value of these savings is estimated about $19.7 million. So this is one of these rare opportunities. We get the same service at lower cost.
So can you do that with our other long-term contracts?
We try to look for as many of these opportunities as we can.
Nice job. Comments, questions?
I did have a question on it. What prompted doing this now versus, a couple years ago when interest rates were, the yield curve wasn't that much different? Or
I'm going to introduce Peter Wynn, who's been one of the staff people working on this issue. I know it's been talked about for some time, a number of other options we've explored, but when it first came up,
were there penalties or something? Or
no, actually, I think the project participants been trying to refinance some of these debt. However, the contract would have ended in 2017. Now, in 2011, Congress passed an act, or it's called the Power Allocation Act, I believe, and it extended the Hoover project for the same participant by another 50 years. So because of that extension, that enables us to take the second look at this, and with the agreement of the Bureau of Reclamation, that's why we are taking action at this point.
Thanks. Other comments, other questions?
I would just add that we very actively look at opportunities to refinance our own debt, and we've exhausted most of those possibilities, but we have a lot of different debt series outstanding. There are some limitations as to when you can refinance it, but it's something we continually look at.
Well, that's obvious. That's terrific. Hopefully you'll find more areas where you can actually do it. Is there a motion in support of item number 32?
So moved.
Second. Those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Congratulations. That's also passed. Now, I want to make a preliminary comment about item number 33 and also item number 35. Really, for the same reason that I requested the deferral of item 29, the sticker shock on the number, I had hoped that we might be able to defer this, and both 33 and 35, again, just to get more information for new board members on the nuts and bolts of these issues. I understand that one of these, if we were to defer it, could be costly to us. So I will not make that request. But the other would not be, and so I will make that request. 33, I take it, has some important time component to getting this dealt with today.
Yeah, that's correct. 33 is the first step. It's an initial resolution that requires going through council, number of activities, but it doesn't, no final action is taken until you've done the supplemental resolution, which is number 35, and that could be deferred to the next board meeting. But it would need to happen
at the next meeting. But if we were to defer 33, it could complicate the timing of getting the needed approvals.
It could push us. It could push us so far out that we would push us into a time frame where historically interest rates go up towards the end of the year, and that would have put us at risk of increasing our actual cost of true interest cost on the debt that we're looking at.
And that was a convincing argument to cause me to withdraw my idea of seeking deferral of this item, but I will make that request on 35. So a presentation of 33.
Okay. Phil Leiber again. These items were all related to financing our capital program for the water system for this year. Our capital budget is $766 million, of which we anticipated this bond funding providing just about half that, $380 million. This bond offering was contemplated in the previous board's acceptance of the budget for 13-14. And from that standpoint, I would say this is a routine offering, the type of which you'll see pretty much every year as we're continuing to be reliant on bond financing for our program. These funds will provide work in 5 major areas, and I'll just say a couple of words about these, and we have people from the water system who can answer any additional questions you might have. But the 5 major programs are our Safe Drinking Water Program for about $233 million. That is for reservoir improvements, trunk line replacements, and treatment improvements. The Local Water Supply Program, which has 4 elements: water recycling, groundwater cleanup, stormwater capture, and water conservation. The Water Infrastructure Program, that's replacing our aging distribution infrastructure, including mains, meters, and pump stations. Our Regulatory Compliance Program in Owens Valley, that's primarily supplemental dust control. And finally, some supporting equipment of about $45 million. That included our customer information system and various IT projects. Bond funding for capital work of this nature is appropriate because it allows us to spread the costs of long-term assets over the beneficiaries of those assets. We currently have about $3.5 billion of debt outstanding. As Mr. Nichols indicated, bond authorizations here at the department require two separate authorizations. One is an initial resolution, which we hope you will proceed with today. That provides really just a high-level overview of the offering, the maximum amount of the bonds, the maximum legal interest rate, and the maximum term of the bonds. This is required also to be approved by the City Council. And that's one reason we're hopeful that we can get your action today to kind of move it along through the process. The supplemental resolution, which we would ask for your approval at the next meeting, provides more details about the transactions, including the particular underwriters who would work with us to market the bonds. That particular resolution does not require City Council approval.
I would like to add one clarification. When you said we had about $3.5 billion outstanding, that's for the water system. It's not inclusive of the power system, which is much larger.
Correct. So this initial resolution package contained a number of materials. I'll just mention those to you. These will be things you'll see in future bond offerings as well. It contains a report from the city administrative officer. They analyze this for their client, the City Council, in that this package will be coming to them. They've done some assessment. They talk about where the dollars are going, the impact on our rates, and it recommends that the mayor approve the package once it gets over to them. I should just note that some of the maximum parameters that are specified here are not indicative of what the issuance will actually look like. It says the maximum term of these bonds can be 45 years. We expect they'll be in the range of 20 years. It talks about a maximum interest rate of 12%. We expect the actual interest rate, which will depend on market conditions, will probably be on the order of the low 4% range. One thing we will also point out here is it does specify the type of transaction. We are recommending a negotiated transaction versus the alternative of a competitive transaction. That's something we continue to look at. It doesn't, when you hear those two terms, you would normally think competitive means lower costs. We should do that. The jury's out on that. It's not clear. It really depends on the type of transaction. In this one, we think we'll get a very good price using a negotiated transaction.
When you say negotiated, do you have multiple candidates that you're negotiating with, or one?
It means we're selecting the underwriters up front, and we have certain underwriters in mind. If you read the next package for 35, you would see those.
Right.
It just means we are arranging up front for them to underwrite the bonds at a negotiated spread, and they would set the interest rate based on market conditions at the time. So the other process is we just put out all of the bonds, and the underwriters make a bid for as much of them as they can bear. There was a memo in here that talked about the advantages of each type of transaction.
Yeah, I read the material, and frankly, I was very impressed by it, and I thought it was very convincing. This is a matter of first impression for me. I've never looked carefully at a bond issue before, and at some point it would be useful to get a deeper briefing on the whole process of bonding.
We'd be happy to provide that.
I thought the material was terrific.
I would suggest, Mr. President, that at the next item, when we discuss this, it would be helpful at least to provide a background of how we select underwriters, how that process works as part of it when we get to the item at the next board meeting, the supplemental. Then we can give you some more background on it, because I think it would be helpful for you.
I think so too. Thank you. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I think that pretty much concluded what I wanted to say about the initial resolution. The package that you have for the item that will defer is the supplemental resolution. You'll find a couple of documents in there that actually this will give you a little more time to look at them. One is a bond purchase contract, just the legal document that governs the sale of the bonds through the underwriters. And then a very important document, the draft official statement, which is what is used to tell our story to the prospective investors, and it's an important document for all of us. It's to lay out the risks and what investors are getting involved with if they purchase these bonds. So we put a lot of effort into that, and it's a good document to tell the story about DWP.
Great. Other questions or comments on item 33?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is the $4.5 million for recycling is that included in this $766 million for the bond?
The 4.5, which item was that? The 29. Oh, and 29. Okay. I think it would have been, yeah. Okay. So that was an item that spanned multiple years. So a portion of that project would be funded in the fiscal year 13-14 capital budget, and about half of that would be funded through this bond offering. So some of that project is funded, yes.
Okay. Well, now, what is the effect of this on the rates now for ratepayers? Is this going to raise our water rates, this bond?
It's a very appropriate question, and that is one that was addressed in the memo from the CAO. It's something we do make an attempt to indicate every time we issue bonds. Our existing rates will cover the cost of these bonds. Now, as we add in new debt over time, that will provide additional pressure on rates, and that's one of the reasons we will be having to go back for rate adjustments in the future. But this particular offering will have an annual cost of about $59 million a year, and that comprises about 2.8% of the total revenue requirement from the water system.
All right, so that will not, at this point in time, not raise the water rates.
No, this would, the cost of carrying this debt service were covered in the water rates that we have in place today.
And I guess it's my understanding that this bond measure would not have to go on the ballot. Is that correct?
No. I'm not aware that any DWP bonds have to go on the ballot, although there's...
Right. This is different than general obligation bonds.
Okay.
When the department issues debt, the only thing that supports that debt is the revenue that we receive from our customers. And so they refer to it as a system revenue bond. So,
is that because it's
right.
capital improvement, or?
No, it's because we are a separate proprietary organization separate from the city.
Uh-huh.
And you as commissioners and council, to the extent that they have secondary approval or use what they call Proposition 245,
yes,
to come
I know about
step in and review it in those cases when they don't have direct automatic authority, are effectively substituting for the populace on it, because it's a matter that we're already obligated to provide water and power service. We perform these services. We do the analytics around that, and its support has to be shown that it's supported by the rates. It's going back and asking for incremental rate increases to fund additional costs above and beyond where that goes then back to the city council.
Okay.
But at no point is this a matter that has to go back before a public vote.
Okay, that's what I want.
Separate and distinct from a general obligation bond, which is
Yes.
typically supported by tax revenue.
Right. And it requires a 2/3.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
I did have a question.
Okay.
You mentioned $3.5 billion in debt for the water side. Did that include the third-party or off-balance sheet debt that you referred to earlier? And how much is the third-party and off-balance sheet debt?
On the water system, we really don't have any. On the power system, we have off-balance sheet debt through SCAPA contracts and through an IPA arrangement. That's a much larger number. Power system debt is about $7 billion. So collectively, water and power, a little over $10 billion. I think we have, when we include the off-balance sheet debt, we're looking at a total of currently, just a little over $10 billion. The IPA, which is, so that's on system.
That's on.
Okay.
Total's 10.
Okay, that's for the power. Well, that's just power. Okay, so for the power system, our owned debt is about $7.3 billion, and if we look at off-balance sheet debt, we're looking at about another $2.8 billion for a total of 10.
Other questions? Other comments?
That's okay.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
I second. Those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It's approved.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President, do you want to take a vote now on deferring item 35 since it's a related topic?
Sure. I'll move the deferral. Those in favor?
Aye.
If everyone's in favor, no one's opposed. So we defer that to the next meeting. Thank you. Item 34, resolution number 4867, establishing a declaration of official intent to reimburse the Water Revenue Fund for certain capital expenditures from proceeds of debt obligations.
Phil Leiber again, and I'll provide just some very brief remarks on this one. These reimbursement resolutions are used in connection with tax-exempt bond issuances. Absent this resolution, we could only use these bond proceeds for any expenditures from the date of the issuance forward. With this reimbursement resolution, it allows us to reach back and reimburse ourselves for expenditures for 2 months prior to this date. So if you approve this resolution today, we'll be able to use bond proceeds for any capital expenditures from August 1st forward. So it gives us more flexibility in how these proceeds are used.
Discussion? Questions? Comments? A motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? Approved.
Thank you.
Item 36, resolution approving the water quality improvement, demand-side management, reclaimed water, and water security expenditures for the 12-month period commencing January 1st, 2014.
Okay. I'll just say a couple of words about these next two topics, and I'll introduce Mr. Jeff Peltolo, who's our Director of Rates and Financial Planning, to say more about these topics. These are very important topics in one sense. This is where the rubber hits the road. All of the money that we spend is ultimately collected from our customers. We have, it's not an understatement to say we have a complex rate structure. It's probably not all going to sink in one presentation, although we have 5 slides here that kind of put this in context. The rate adjustments that are in front of you today are for certain of our pass-through adjustments. We have a rate structure that includes a base rate that once it's set, it stays at that level until it's changed by the City Council. And we also have a number of pass-through rate adjustments. These can be either changed automatically. In one case, for our purchased water, no board action is even required to change that one. Others of the pass-throughs require board action. These rates change every quarter. And what we have in front of you today is a proposal to change the water rates effective January 1st, 2014, and to change the power rates, in fact, effective today. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Peltola to provide an overview of both of those.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Peltola. I'm Director of Rates and Financial Planning for the department. We have a brief PowerPoint we passed out for both of these items. The first one we'll talk about is the water adjustment factors. A couple of things just to add to what Phil talked about. The reason that we're putting this before you now for the January of 2014, obviously a little bit ahead of time, is Prop 218 notification. We have to notify our customers that the rates are going to be impacted. And the reason for doing it this far ahead of time is we do it through bill stuffers rather than a separate letter. So if we didn't do it through the bill stuffers, we'd have to issue a separate letter, which generally costs us somewhere in the order of about $700,000, which would be $700,000 every quarter. So it's obviously more advantageous for us to do it this way. What you'll see throughout the document, it's based on a 12-month projection, takes into account the actuals. These calculations are per the existing water rate ordinance. It was last modified in early 2012 as part of the water quality rate action. The overall structure has really been in place since the early 1990s. Schedules A through D, if you look in the actual board document, list out all the different projects, and these are the ones that constitute the costs. We have also both this document as well as the energy cost adjustment factor. We have provided copies of that in advance to the ratepayer advocate and his staff. That was done, I think, close to a month ago. We have not received any input back, and we do have periodic meetings. So if I go to the next slide, just what I'm going to go over today is just the current rate structure. talk about the structure. As we go through this, especially on the water side, one of the things you'll see is we need to modify our rate structure. The water rate structure is very complicated, and it's something we want to try to work on and simplify as we go forward. And we're going to show the system average rate with and without purchased water. A lot of the discussion you all have had today talking about purchased water, water conservation, local water supply, you'll see the impacts of that through some of these charts. And then we'll talk about the water adjustment factors. First, our rate structure. Let's see if I can use the mouse. So the way that our rates are structured, if you look at the current Tier 1 rate structure, we have a water budget for every customer. This water budget is based on the number of people you have at your household, based on the size of the landscape and the climactic zone, and we have 3 climactic zones for the water. So we have a base rate that you'll see down the bottom, and then we have the various pass-throughs: water quality improvement, DSM water reclamation, purchased water, water security, Owens Valley, low income subsidy, and then the water revenue adjustment, which right now is 0. One of the big problems we have, if you look at on the right side, which is Tier 2, that is our conservation-based rates. That is at a higher rate. However, purchased water, DSM and water reclamation and water quality are embedded in that base rate. So what that means is as purchased water goes up, it erodes our base rate revenue, which base rate revenues are to support the overall delivery, the overall, all of the water distribution functions and whatnot. What this chart shows, historically, going back to fiscal year 11-12, is the red line is the total rate that our customers pay. So this is a system average rate. So this is what the total amount of revenue we collected, including purchased water, divided by the amount of HCF. So if you look at that, you can see that the rates have gone down from in January of 2012, we were roughly about $3.25, and they have increased going forward. Now what this indicates is really purchased water increases. The blue line is the same exact rates, but we've taken out the purchased water. So you can see our revenue outside of purchased water has remained relatively flat going through the years. What this really provides is how much money we're paying to MWD, and a lot of the things that were discussed earlier today about local water supply, water conservation. This is a justification for why we should be doing those things. We've had 2 winters, and Marty knows better. Last winter was a not bad winter, but certainly below average, right? And then the winter before that was quite low. Yeah. So with those 2 low snowpacks, coupled with a lot of the environmental mitigation uses of our water coming down the LA aqueduct, our purchased water costs have driven up quite a bit, and this chart clearly indicates that. So in this, what's in front of you right now to be approved, in the yellow, you can see the differences. If we go to just cut to the chase on the bottom right, the difference is really an increase of 7.4 cents per HCF. For a typical customer, that would be an increase of about 85 cents per month. Now, where is that increase coming from? The main increase is on the very top line where you see water conservation and reclaimed water. That is our local water supply program, and that's an increase of roughly 6 cents. Going down below, you can see purchased water is still going up just a little bit more, from $1.81 essentially to $1.84. Those 2 components are the main increases for that 7.4 cent increase. So it's really water conservation, reclaimed water, the local water supply program, and then just a little bit more of an increase in the projections for Metropolitan Water District. That's my brief presentation on the water quality. I can answer any questions. Again, if you look through here, all of the projects are listed out in the schedules, I think A through D. We've listed out all of the different capital projects. And like I say, this is something that you will see quarterly. We'll do every quarter.
And if I could add just one quick point here on this. One of the reasons I indicated I wanted to talk a bit about our budget at a later meeting is and there were some questions about the recycled water program. If we were to talk about what we're doing in our water conservation program, the numbers are meaningful there, similar to all the other things that Jeff just referred to as our local water supply plan. Our whole goal is, as he pointed out there, the most volatile piece of the total water rate is our purchased water prices. Well, it's two. It's the purchased water price, which tends to go up about 5 to 5.5% per year from MWD, just kind of the rate at which it goes up. And then the volume, and since we have to supply water, when we don't have it from our local water supply, which is a relatively small fraction, and then from the Eastern Sierra, we buy it up there. So one of the things you'll see more of is, when we're talking further about our budgets and some of our other programs, is this funding of a local water supply program is to get that piece bigger so that the volume that could shift depending upon a dry or a wet year, how much we have to shift back onto or off of MWD, that's a smaller volume, and that variability and volatility will be less. So that's the kind of trade-off that we're dealing with. This kind of shows how that comes to roost in a dry year like this. Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, just to say another word about that volatility, if you look at the chart on page 3, this is a trend that doesn't just head up. It looks like that red line is just heading in one direction. The purchased water piece is quite volatile. If we have a good water year next year, this could very well come down. But what customers have faced from this is, a couple years back, the typical customer was paying about $39 a month, and because of these increases in purchased water costs, their bill has increased to about $55 a month. So that volatility is what the local water program could help mitigate.
Questions?
Is Dr. Pickles still here?
Yeah, I was going to ask the same thing. Is anybody from?
He wasn't here. Camden's here.
Okay.
It is the case that we have been in the lake for at least a month, not longer.
That's good.
So you're not going to ask me any hard questions now, are you?
I'm not. I don't know about my colleagues.
I had a couple of questions. One, Jill, the Commissioner Broad, mentioned the Valley's concern about higher rates, and I think it has something to do with the surcharge rate that's placed. Is there any way of figuring out what this is on an area-wide basis of the city? I mean, is that, not now, but at some point in the future, if we could get a better idea of how the rates are moving?
We can do that. Let me just give maybe a quick overview of how we do that. Like I said earlier, we set the water budget, how much volume of water they can have on Tier 1 at the lower rate based on the number of people, the size of the lot, and the climactic zone. So if they're in the warmest zone, which could be out in the valley, they'll actually get a larger allotment of water at the lower Tier 1. Now, that being said, we still know you have, it may be hotter, it may be bigger, but we do set it so that it's a water budget. And quite honestly, the department was the leader of this in the early 1990s, setting it up with a water budget. But we can get that info.
The other question that go ahead.
If I might
go ahead, Cameron.
The general manager mentioned you have 2 cases coming forward. One of the PA consulting recommendations from last year was to look at rate design. And we have been briefed regularly on the rate design study that is a component of that rate increase that you'll be dealing with, I believe, first quarter of next year. There'll be a very thorough vetting of the rate design structure, and the geographical component is part of that rate design.
The other question that I had related to the bond issue we just approved, or some piece of bond, what rates were in the pro formas for the bond issue in terms of, because it looks like you're asking us to approve an increase in rates, but were you using, and I hear you in terms of the volatility, so does this increase in rates, was it factored in the pro formas for ability to pay back our bond issue based on the unapproved or approved or proposed to be approved rate.
Jeff, why don't you make just a quick explanation of the base rate versus this to differentiate between the pass-throughs and the finance part, I think would help.
So the base rates, much of what you'll see in the bond issue can support the base rate activities, which is replacing infrastructure, which is the biggest piece of that. I think that was some of the discussion. So what we factor into the financial plan is the debt service needed to support those bond issues, and that is integrated with what we're asking for here. Much of what we're asking for here will not include debt issues, although it can as well on some of them because of the treatment we have. We have the ability to look at either the debt service or we can cash fund things up front. It is all integrated with what the bond issue that Phil was speaking of earlier.
Which rate?
These rates that we have here.
The new rate or the old rate?
The new rate that's coming, yeah.
Thanks.
Commissioner Barad?
Yes. I just happen to have my bill with me that I got yesterday. Oops, sorry. My bill is $1,733.43. That's for 2 months. So I'm wondering, have you thought about looking at the way the water allotment is in the valley?
And we are, as was mentioned earlier, Camden mentioned, we are looking at that right now. We are in the process of and really are required to legally go back through and look at the marginal cost of service. We're looking at allotments for the entire 464 square miles of Los Angeles. We're looking at newer technologies that are in place now in comparison to 1990.
Yeah.
And we're looking at a different structure. We haven't decided yet which one, but we are looking at that actively. That was part of the recommendations that came in 2012 from the PA consultant report and the RPA.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that. And I have a second line. The DWP advised me to put in a second meter, which I did, and it's still $1,733. So I think it's time, to really look at that. I think that we feel like we're being penalized. I mean, what are we going to do,
Well, we agree. We're looking at that right now.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions? Other comments? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. It is approved. We move to item 37. Resolution approving the energy cost adjustment expenditures for the 12-month period commencing October 1st, 2013.
So this, again, is the quarterly adjustment, but now is on the power side, and this actually, with your approval, will go into effect today. This is, again, based very similar on the latest 12 months of projections and takes into account the actuals. The calculations are per the existing electric rate ordinance modified in November of 2012. These rates were last restructured in 2009. So our electric rates in 2009 we restructured. We didn't have tiered rates at the time. We put those tiered rates in at that point. Schedules A through D also list out all of the specific expenditures. If you go to the second page, what I'm going to cover today, the current rate structure, the composite energy cost adjustment factor, and what we compare to is the board-approved rates case versus the October 2012 rate case. So that was the case that was presented, approved, and ultimately implemented. And then I'll talk a little bit about the RPS adjustment factor, the capped and variable, and compare that, and then show the natural gas prices and the impact that had. Natural gas prices, again, are market prices. We buy from a number of areas. Aaron can go through that, but we have a number of pipelines, but essentially we're still subject to the market prices for burning natural gas. Our power current rate structure is very complicated for a number of reasons that we could probably talk about in a different setting. But we have the incremental rate ordinance, which is what was passed, and we have the rate ordinance down below, which was a cap to the ordinance that was in place as of November 3, 2010. What I'm going to talk about today is really the top three boxes. These are the energy cost adjustment factors. This was worked out through the RPA was coming in at the end of this. We worked out with the RPA as well as PA Consulting, CLA, CAO, on what's the most transparent way that we can show these factors. So if you look at this, the purple or variable energy adjustment, that's essentially our non-RPS fuel costs, our non-RPS purchase power agreements, funds related to true-up decoupling, which is not in place just yet. And then we have two components that are our variable RPS energy adjustment and our capped RPS energy adjustment. Those two are the variable is anything above a minimum RPS purchase or market purchases, so essentially short-term purchases that we're making. The capped renewable portfolio standard is our O&M and debt service for both on and off balance sheet projects that we have. So any of the projects that we talk about through SCAPA, that's funded through our capped RPS. SCAPA is Southern California Public Power Association. That has
authority.
How many?
Power Authority.
Yeah, or Power Authority, I'm sorry, but it has how many members?
Close to 15, 16 members.
15, 16 members, including other cities. And so that much of that, what Phil talked about, the $10 billion with the off-balance sheet, some of that is associated with SCAPA. These three components are the one that we're asking for approval on. One requirement on the capped RPS, we are required as part of the rate action to do a projection. That is capped at 0.125 cents per kilowatt hour per quarter. And we are required to do a 3-year look ahead to make sure that that cap is sufficient. So if that cap does not support our planned expenditures and it's going to be above 50 million, in other words, the amount we could collect is 50 million short of the amount we need, we have to report that to you and we have to report that to City Council. If it's 100 million, we actually not only have to report it, but we have to request a rate action on that. If you look in the board package, I think we have an under collection of about $1 million. So we right now, and in fact, as I'll show you in a couple charts, our renewable costs are coming down compared to the case we had in November of 2012.
And that's incremental new renewable, correct?
That's right, incremental new renewables, correct. So if you look at this next chart on page 3, the red is our October 2012 rate case, and this is those three energy cost adjustment factors together. And what we're asking for today, and I'll get into the reasons why, is that if you look at the July 2013, we're going from 6.09 cents per kilowatt hour to 6.176. So that's an increase that will cause on a typical residential customer, roughly 43 cents a month. So where does this come from? That's the natural question. If it's a little bit above you can see it's a little bit above the line that we were telling the board and our important stakeholders as well as City Council. And on the next chart, this is the capped and variable RPS. So the two RPS. So this is two of the three, and this is the one associated with the renewables. And you can see here that the blue line now, because of many of the projects we're doing at much lower cost than what we thought, is actually dropping far below where we are, including this rate action, or I shouldn't say rate action, but quarterly adjustment that we're talking about today. You can see the current rate for the July quarter is 0.654 cents per kilowatt hour. It's going to drop to 0.387, so it's actually going down for the renewables. Well, obviously that means, well, wait a second, if that's going down, the overall rate's going up, so that's related to the variable energy charge, which is coming from the natural gas. And if you look at the last and final page, this compares the natural gas costs that we had in the rate action, which is in the center there, if you will, Rocky Mountain natural gas price projection from rate case that we had in April 24th, 2012, and you can see it was a little under $3.50 per million BTU. Now the latest projection, while still Ron can tell you more about this is still a good natural gas price comparatively to what it used to be, but it's going to be about 19% higher. That's what's causing the increase that we see on that variable energy adjustment.
I thought natural gas prices are projected to go down. That's wrong?
Go ahead.
No, natural gas prices, well, first of all, natural gas prices move up and down within kind of certain areas dependent upon demand.
But with all this increased supply?
Well, increased supply doesn't make it everywhere, for starters, number one. Number two, we've had a very dry year. So when you have a very dry year, hydroelectricity across the entire West is down. You know, the San Onofre plant is down. So you have a lot of non-gas-fired generators that typically meet a lot of that supply that aren't operating. And the only place, and we've got coal plants that are starting to come down across the nation, and it's just putting upward prices on natural gas. You'll see it, you'll see these things vary around, and one of the things in later days, certainly not today, I'm not going to drag you through the issue of natural gas price hedging. So that's one of the things you do is you buy hedges to try to limit how much that might go up around there. But, this is, we picked, when we did our rate case, we picked kind of a medium case of our projection. We use outside parties that give us those projections. I used to do that for a living, too, and I can't say I was always right. So this is trending more towards in the near term, some of the higher end of that curve. Frankly, we'll see it go up and down. I'm hopeful that we get back to this is where doing a snow dance helps, because it helps us on the water side for our water supply, and it helps us in hydro across the West, and that's something that is probably only one of the near term things that will start turning that curve around.
Well, just to remind everybody what the price was in 2001.
Well, it was $12 and above, sometimes spiking up to $14.
Good reminder.
And at that point in time, we thought that $6 or $7 would be nirvana.
Yep.
Right.
That's exactly right.
Okay, that's good perspective. Other comments or questions? Is there a motion to approve? Second. Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? It's approved. Thank you very much for these very helpful presentations. I'm going to propose we go to item 38 and 39 and then stretch our legs for a few minutes before going into the closed session. Item 38.
Actually, with respect to items, all the items on 38, unless you have questions on them, 38A, I should say.
Okay.
Be clear on this, that unless you have questions, we generally don't propose a presentation on that. If you would like a presentation on that, we're happy to do that, and we have people here who could do so.
Would anybody like a presentation on 38A, on the monthly report of activities for the water system? Those people may leave, unless they have another item. 38, they had to stay a long time to get that information. We should try to deal with that in the future.
We could try to do that.
38A2. Oh, wait, 38A, the whole thing. Right. Water, power, and financial services. I meant 38A1 initially. Right. 38A2, the power system. Okay. 38A3, Financial Services Organization. Okay, now all of 38A may leave.
Right.
38B.
Again, this is also just an informational item. We have a number of rental agreements. Past board members were particularly interested in our rental agreements because you get the trade-off between renting equipment versus purchasing, and so we put together a regular reporting with respect to what are we renting out there.
Probably in some meetings when they aren't the 38th item,
right.
You might see a greater degree of interest.
I would agree. No.
Item 39.
On this one, Mr. President, we were proposing to give at least a high-level review over this because it's an area that is, as you just heard, it's a material issue for us. It's an item you'll hear about every single meeting. It's about on some manner with respect to our renewable standards, and so I'd like to have Aaron Benjamin give us at least a high-level review of the materials that you have received.
If I may just point you to, you have a packet in front of you that has a large sheet that is the master sheet, and then another graph that shows our monthly. I would like to just focus on these two documents, and there's a lot of backup document also that you could refer to. Usually we file these items on a monthly basis, and if there's any questions we can go into deep, but I think this will be worth going through. The master list that you have in front of you is everything that we have on our plate when it comes to implementation of our renewable portfolio standards. So our RPS goals that we have as a state mandate by 2020, we must have 1/3 of our energy source coming from qualified renewable sources. So having that goal, between now and 2020, we have intermediate milestones that we must meet under the law. The first one coming up is 2016, which is 25% compliance. This large sheet that you have in front of you has everything that we have currently on our plate as far as resources that are in service and they are operating and generating energy that currently we have coming into our system, from small hydro to biomass to solar to wind to upgrades to our power plants and in different geographic areas of our system. It also lists the energy contribution of each of those projects to our portfolio. And it is a tricky balancing act for us to make sure that we're not over-procuring as we get towards those goals and not under-procuring and not meet the law. So we do have a provision for us on purchases that we can do on the market in order for us to true up these goals that we have until we get these large projects in place, and that will give us the solid foundation. So the way that our strategy has evolved is that we do have power purchase agreement, and on your sheet on the right-hand side lower corner, you have a summary of what categories of these procurements that we have. So the first one is DWP owned. So we do have solar farms, wind farms, and a lot of resources that we currently own and operate, and those are the contribution from those resources are listed in those as we move forward the percentages are projected. We have power purchase agreement that we have options in the contract to own, which means we could exercise the ownership at 7 years or 8 years depending on the contract, and those projects are listed also with their contributions in there. And the totals are, as you can see, the first milestone is 25%, and that's coinciding with the 2016 deadline. And then as we move forward, you see the 33% based on the projected sales that we're going to do, and that's at the bottom of your sheet there on the right-hand lower corner.
Which one is that, Aaron?
The lower on the large sheet, the lower right-hand corner. It's a summary of all those percentages. And the last line item is the gigawatt hour forecasted for each of those years. So that includes our energy efficiency and everything that we're doing. And based on the numerator and the denominator of these two numbers, which gives us the percentage, we are basically balancing the two numbers that we are forecasting going forward in order for us to meet the goals of the law. Concentrating back on the other sheet of the graph that you see here, and this is a very informative graph that we put on in your packet, is that every month we do have a true-up of actual energy delivered to our customers, and the percentage of that energy delivered based on the metering that we do on the sources and the sales we do for our customers. And we project those numbers, and then we go back and verify the source of those energy and the sales, and then and then audit those numbers. So today, the audit came out for our for our last year's renewables, and we are at 20% renewables certified, which we by law we have to declare to the state as our content label. So we have to declare every source of energy that we've delivered, audited numbers that we have to declare, and those are 20%. So this is a very good graph. Also, it tells you the contributions of LADWP owned or option to own sources versus the long-term purchases that we have in place versus the true-ups. The salmon color bars that you see there are basically market purchases that we have that true-up, that kind of fine-tunes our numbers as we move forward. Something to note on these things, we have a lot of operational issues that we have to work around. So if we have, for example, a tower line down or a path that we were counting on that's not there, and we have to get the energy to another area that doesn't come to our area, we use that adjustment mechanism for us to purchase on the market and bring in energy that we could get credit. As Ron mentioned, hydro is a part of our renewables, a small hydro. If we don't have a good year, we don't generate as much as forecast, we true up that percentages. So there's a lot of adjustments that we do. Our Energy Control Center has a desk that manages the day-to-day marketing activities, and this is part of their duty, is to make sure that they do the forecast and they do the purchases on the market for us to meet those goals.
Would these monthly variations vary a lot from year to year, or is there something seasonal about them?
It does have a certain profile. So during the winter, for example, the hydro will be very low. Our wind will pick up, and during summer our solar will be. So as we're learning more about these resources, we could pretty much predict the performance of the wind profile and the solar profile and the hydro profile as we go forward. But they are very much variables from month to month to month.
And the December spike was because
of the end of the year. This is a calendar year true-up, so the label content, it's not fiscal year, it's from January 1 to December 31. So as we get true-ups along the way from month to month, we have an adjustment factor that we add at the end of the year and then make sure we hit our targets.
So that's normal.
That's normal. As our hope is, as we get these large projects in place, that number becomes very small.
Yeah.
Based on production forecasts and stuff like that. But as of now, since we have these large chunks of in-service dates coming in, it's very hard for us to smooth it, as we go up to 33%. So that's why you can see these spikes based on, like, for example, we had our small generation, we had a catastrophic failure on a generator, and that wasn't part of our planning in there. So we have to go back and figure out another way for us to make that up.
And why is there so much red numbers in 2013 on your big chart?
On the
is there a significance to the red?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. What's the significance to red?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
They just sort of jump out at you.
Yeah. It's just we ran out of colors, so.
That's the scientific explanation.
Yeah, Randy Howard, Director of Power System Planning and Development. So what you're seeing in 2013 is more projects are coming online. So you're seeing some of our new power purchase agreements are coming online, and as they come online, they're having a greater contribution towards these numbers. So you'll
Does
continue.
the red mean they just came online?
Something about the red text.
I'm just saying that some of the numbers are in red.
On the big chart.
On the big one, and
Yeah.
those were just approved. So the Ormat geothermal, is that the one you're looking at?
No, I'm looking on the far right under 2013. Just most of the numbers are in red, and then you get to the following years and there's almost no red. And I just didn't know if it meant anything, that you're supposed to
The
stick.
total is red also.
The total is red.
There's got to be a reason, and we just can't. We'll get you the
Yeah,
answer.
well, the numbers beyond for 2014 are projected. As you can see, the 2013 are current. So these are numbers that are currently going on, and these numbers will continue to increase on a monthly basis. So we'll provide you this report monthly. You'll see how we're progressing each month in the given year, but the others are estimates based on what we expect these projects to produce in those given years and their contribution towards our overall goal.
So the red basically means you're closer to knowing what they are?
So the red is just what's actually occurred, but what should happen if you take a project.
But we have some reds in out years, like 15 and 16, we have reds.
Yeah, so in 2013, if you were to take the small hydro at 99.99, in years we would expect it to be closer to 2.5% on average. This year it's coming in way below so far this year. But this is an actual number to date. So we still have a couple more months that we're going for the 2015.
We should put the explanation on the sheet so that we know the convention.
What we're trying to do is give you a real-time picture of our ability to comply this year and how we are in that progress.
I think it's the second line that's a little confusing, at least, because you have a black in 13 and 14 and red in 15 and 16.
Yeah, and some of them are fixed amounts. So you'll get a fixed amount, and some are variable amounts.
We'll add.
But we'll add some
legends
explanation.
that give you a better
Add this
explanation.
module to our next tutorial.
Yeah, this is evolved as we've had board
It's quite a
members.
comprehensive list. I mean,
It does give you the projected plan that we have going forward, how we're going to meet our compliance obligations and the various projects to do that.
We also have just the summary sheets, and again, we're welcome any questions you have, and we'll explain a summary sheet of the project in individual projects, where they're located, what type of size we're talking about, where are we on the negotiations, and if they're kind of under negotiations, we kind of name them with numbers, solar 1, solar 2. So that way you know where we're talking about, because this is a public document. So and then lastly, we have several programs that are in place. The SB1 Solar Incentive Program, and we have a status report in your packet that shows where are we on the progress of applications, inspections, how much money we've paid, and a tabulation of where we are on that program.
There's a lot of information in this book. And a lot of information on those 2 pages. Thank you very much. I don't think a motion is necessary for this item.
No.
Just information.
Okay. If I can get back to the agenda through this fat package here. So that brings us to the items for closed session. And I would recommend that we take a 5-minute, 7-minute break before going into closed session. Is there any objection to that?
Before we do that, Commissioner, let me just give the admonition that at this point we will recess into closed session, and then at the end of that closed session we will report any final actions taken thereon in accordance with Section 549571 of the California Government Code.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, we will recess into closed session, but not begin it for a few minutes.